Good evening. I now call the Rocklin Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting for November 18th, 2020 to order. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Camille Maben. Here. Derek Counter.
Here.
Eric Stevens.
Here.
Rochelle Price. Here. Rick Miller.
Here. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, the board will now adjourn to closed session regarding the items listed on the agenda. The board will resume to open session at 6:30 p.m. Welcome back. Thank you. We now continue tonight's board meeting. This meeting is being held pursuant to the procedure established in Executive Order N-2920 issued by California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 17, 2020 in response to COVID-19. The public may view this meeting through RUSD's YouTube channel, live stream, and provide public comment through the links on the RUSD website, as well as on the board agenda under item 2.1. Per Board Bylaw 9323 on meeting procedures, and to allow the community opportunity to participate in meetings and to hear board discussion, deliberations and voting on items, verbal comments during virtual meetings will be limited to 10 people at 3 minutes each or 30 minutes total comments on one agenda item. Additional public comments may be submitted in written format. All written comments submitted will be read silently during the board meeting. So, and again, I'll remind folks at home, this is a new procedure for us. We're trying this out to make sure that we get to our main agenda items early enough in the night for most of the community to actually hear our board deliberations. So with that, I want to note that we took no action in closed session, and I'm excited to introduce Alexis Manriquez. Did I get that right? Close? Okay, from Victory High School, our student body president, who we're excited to have her join us for her first meeting here, Board of Trustees. And with that, Alexis, I'd love you to join us in or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so tonight is a bittersweet night. It is the last board meeting for two of our board members, and so who we will miss dearly, but an opportunity for us to celebrate and thank them for their incredible work and dedication to our board. And so I'm going to start with Trustee Stevens. It says, I'll read the plaque, and it says so on the plaque, but among the many things we're proud of, Eric is, I think, the first, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, trustee elected who actually went to our schools. And I think it says a lot about the maturation of Rocklin, and we couldn't have been represented by a better human individual than Eric. So let me just say, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, with deep appreciation for your professionalism, passion, and service to the children, families, and staff of the Rocklin Unified School District family, you will always be remembered as profoundly knowledgeable, thoughtful, and steady representative for the Rocklin community. A point of pride as the first RUSD graduate elected to serve, the Rocklin community is greatly appreciative for the valuable difference you have made and know you will continue to make. So I want to both thank you on behalf of the board. I also want to say, in case they're watching home to Molly and the girls, we recognize this we all, more than anyone, recognize this is a family affair. And so as much as we appreciate you, we appreciate them. We appreciate Molly letting us have you a lot over 4 years, and the girls for their commitment to the work, but mostly for we said in here, but you're steadfast. You were a guiding light of understanding how policy impacted, what it made a difference, and understanding the rules and the laws around it, and actually helping us be very thoughtful and specific as we deliberate and move forward. So can't thank you enough for your incredible work. So thank you. Exactly. So let me just, before you say, let me just ask if any of my colleagues want to add anything. You needn't, but I want to open, Derek, I want to open it up to allow that.
Yeah, and I'll say it, so again, for Eric, thank you for being that guiding light. Again, I've only been on the board 2 years, much like Rick, but you're that board member that's always been there. So had those questions, asked that question. I mean, I didn't have any other, and again, Camille, the same thing. Like those are the only board members I've known, so very cool. Having the insight and and again, I'll say it for myself, but all those silly questions that I'll ask in a closed meeting about, well, how does this affect and the legal start point? So really neat to hear. I will say, and this is, I'll give you a real quick speech, but this is for both of you guys, so for Camille and Eric. And I don't think, I hope most of the people in the public understand that you put yourself out here and you're criticized, you're ridiculed, you're praised, all at the same time. So I'll give the speech from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcomings. but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends his time himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end of the triumph the high achievement, and who at worst, or at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. You guys put yourself in the arena for conversations, comments. You make decisions. We've all made them, but I don't think many people understand that being up here, it's easy to be on Facebook and say, I would have done that or I would have done this. But at this point, you guys put yourselves in the arena to be accountable. And I thank you for that. And I hope that the city of Rocklin and the community of Rocklin also thanks you for that. So thank you very much for being in the arena.
Thanks, Derek.
I love that quote. I'm glad you shared it. Thank you. I just want to say I'm so grateful to Eric for, he's been so helpful to me the last year, and for how much good he has done for our district, especially with his knowledge and what he does for his day job. It's just been very beneficial. I respect Eric. I appreciate his how well-spoken he is. We always talk about how articulate he is and professional, and what he has brought to the board has been will be remembered, and it's recognized and appreciated. And I don't think we've seen the end. I think Eric's going to be here for a long time, and I'm sure he'll be contributing to Rocklin in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm the only one who knew Eric when he was in high school. Thank you, because he went to school with one of my kids. So, and I have to say, I was a little taken aback when he ran. I thought, how could that be? But he stepped up, and you did, Eric, and you did just a great job. And you always came prepared, and you always had thoughtful questions that helped give us a full perspective. And you stayed true to yourself and your beliefs, and that is incredible and so appreciated. And I look forward, as you now become a parent in the classroom, to see how that goes for you. I'm sure you and your girls and your wife will enjoy your time in a different role in the district. And I predict someday you may be back, and that would be a good thing for Rocklin Unified. So congratulations, sir. Good job.
Thank you so much to all of you, and I will say something very brief, because if I don't say it now, I will end up saying it after Camille speaks, and it'll be very anticlimactic. Camille is a tough act to follow, as we all know. It really has been an honor and a privilege to serve on this board, to represent the community, but just to work with all my board members, both my current board and the trustees. I learned the most from my first 2 years, Todd Lowell and Wendy Lang. I have learned so much, and Susan Halden. I've learned so much so quickly. My day job, I work with schools, but it is so incredibly different when you actually sit up here and you actually have to make the decisions and weigh these issues. I've got a really different perspective now, but it's not goodbye. I think it's just, I'll see you around and I'll see you later. Because as Camille mentioned, I do have very young kids. My oldest daughter, Rose, will be graduating from Rocklin High School or Whitney High School, who knows, we'll see, in the class of 2035. That's my oldest kid. So I'm gonna be here for a while. I look forward to continuing to see and work with all of you, but we are so lucky here in Rocklin to have this community, to have our kids, to have our engaged, active parents. And we really do have such warm, wonderful, caring people who work here at the district. I think COVID-19 has, well, this is the most difficult thing I think any of us have ever faced, and we never expected to face this, but it has shown how much people care about kids and each other in our schools. And I'm so proud that I got to be a part of this for 4 years, and I'll get to continue to be a part of it. the next couple of years, maybe not as a trustee, but as, as a parent and probably PTC and things like that. So thank you to my fellow board members. Thank you to everyone in this room. Thank you to all the people for all the time you've all put in. It is such an honor to get to represent all of you. And I am happy for the new board, for the new members who are going to be joining the board, because they're going to have an opportunity to experience this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Camille Maben, is that it?
I think so.
Camille first joined this board in 1989. I was alive. I don't know if everyone else on the board was, but so let me just say to this plaque. Let me just read this plaque for you, so I don't cry. With deep appreciation for your years of service, passion, dedication, and commitment to the children, families, and staff of the Rocklin Unified School District family, no trustee in Rocklin history has had a greater impact on our district or did more to make Rocklin schools the world-class institutions that they are today. You leave an enduring legacy as a leading advocate, particularly for our youngest children, and a caring voice for the Rocklin community. Your service will always be remembered with great appreciation for the incredible difference you have made. So on behalf of the district, I want to thank you. I want to be crystal clear, we're not done with you. And Eric is in on this. We recognize you've had the longest service, and so we're going to do a little more for you tonight to talk about and mark this incredible moment. So the first thing I want to do is we've actually put together a video, the staff here, Diana and Roger put together a video that I want you to take a look at for a few people that wanted to be here because of COVID they couldn't, but we wanted to make sure their voices were heard tonight. So Diana, if we can start running that video, we'll begin there, and then we'll say a few words afterwards. You might, Rochelle, she maybe need more tissues.
Hi, Camille, and congratulations on fulfilling 29 years of public service. Tens of thousands of students have benefited from your expertise and knowledge in education. It was an honor to serve with you on the board, and I wish you the best in all your future endeavors.
Things that come to mind when I think of you, Camille, is number one, first and foremost, your passion for all kids. I would say also, you're constantly seeking to understand before making decisions for Rocklin Unified students, which is invaluable.
Hello, dear friend. I appreciate the opportunity to celebrate your contributions to the Rocklin Unified School District. On behalf of the educators, support staff, parents, and most of all, the students that enter our school each day. Your encouragement, kindness, spirit, and devotion on behalf of others is a gift that money can't buy.
I appreciate your dedication to this community, to the Rocklin Unified family, and just your amazing heart to do what is right for our students and our families of Rocklin Unified.
First, as a parent, I am grateful for your leadership because my own family benefited from that when we moved to Rocklin 24 years ago. Your knowledge and relationships within the Capitol gave us inside information about the state's education budget and better informed our own decision-making. Rocklin Unified's enviable reputation is in large part influenced by you. I respect, admire, and cherish you.
You've given countless hours and such a large piece of your heart to our district and to all of us that work here and have worked here. We love you, Camille. Take care.
It is undeniable that your love of children, your respect for teachers, your devotion to this district have never wavered. Your legacy continues in all those you've inspired along the way.
When I think of the Rocklin Unified School District, I think of you and your many, many years of service to thousands and thousands of children. And just as importantly is your total support of the teachers, the administrators, the families, and everyone associated with our district.
Thank you, Camille, for being the voice of the teachers, the staff, the students, and the community of Rocklin. In my 28 years here, I have been there as you have intently listened to our concerns, helped to solve problems, and celebrated solutions. You are appreciated more than you will ever know.
Camille Maben has been an outstanding public servant and advocate for all the students and families in Rocklin Unified School District for nearly 3 decades. We are fortunate in the state of California that Camille's advocacy and service will continue to bring equitable opportunities for all students in this state.
Well, they made me come off the beach here to say something about you retiring. All I have to say is, welcome to the other side. It's amazing. Love you. Congratulations on everything you've done over the years. Can't believe that you were on the board before I was even born. Now look at us. Come on over. The water's fine. Love you.
So I do want to say to the video, and I want to thank Chief Capra for putting that together, that we asked people, because we knew we were in a board meeting, to keep it under a minute. They did not. They had lots more to say. So that's the condensed version that I kindly put together tonight. You will get the full version, so you can enjoy everything folks had to say. So before we go around and have comments, what I actually thought we wanted to do was we wanted to actually do one final mark in this moment. And we thought, as the longest serving trustee in the history of Rocklin, it was important to mark this moment and mark this moment in the record. So I actually have a resolution that I want to put forward and for the board to consider. So it's a resolution of the Rocklin Unified School District of appreciation and commendation of Trustee Camille Maben. Whereas Camille Maben has served with the Rocklin Unified School Board as a Board of Trustee for 29 years, 1989 to 2002 and 2004 to 2020, its longest-serving board member in the history of RRUSD, and whereas she provided passion, dedication, and commitment to the children's families and staff of the Rocklin Unified School District family, and whereas she has guided the board in its governance and has served as board president multiple times, and whereas she has contributed to the planning, building, and opening of 16 schools in the Rocklin community during her service, and whereas she has been a leading advocate for our USD, particularly for the district's youngest children in transitional kindergarten programs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rocklin Unified School District commends our USD board member Camille Maben for her unwavering dedication and genuine compassion to the students, staff, and families of the district through her 29 years of faithful public service. And I would like to move that we adopt this resolution tonight. Do I have a second? Second by Derek. With that, I'd like to actually open it up to public comment before I do board member comments. So Chief Capra, do we have any public comment?
In the back.
Oh, thanks. Are you doing, oh, great, perfect. Wonderful. Come on down. We got teachers in the house. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me if I'm too loud. I don't want to use my gym voice. Okay. I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I got it all out from a memory here. Okay. In 1983, the community of Rocklin was first introduced to Camille Maben when her oldest child started kindergarten at Parker Whitney. From there, Camille was a staple in Rocklin schools, working in the classroom with the teachers, administrators, talking to parents and their families, advocating to teach the whole child. Camille was a champion for the struggling students, advanced students, students with special needs, and students that had family hardships equally. Camille saw the students of Rocklin as all of our children. In the late 1980s, the community of Rocklin needed an education expert and a student advocate. The community was calling, and Camille answered. When Camille first became a school board member, there were only 3 schools in Rocklin: Rocklin Elementary, Parker Whitney, and Springview. During her time as a board member, Camille has helped to develop the expansion of Rocklin schools, adding 9 elementary, 1 middle school, 2 comprehensive high schools, and a continuation high school. Camille has had to make difficult decisions over the years while keeping our school district financially secure and always focused on what's best for all students. Camille has always stayed true to her heart that all children can learn and deserve the best education possible. Camille recognizes that teachers are experts in the classrooms and know what is best for all students. She's made sure that teachers are given the tools that they need to achieve student success within the classroom. After approximately 4 decades of service and Rocklin's longest serving board member, we would like to thank you for always providing a listening ear, thoughtfully considering what's best for all students, and caring for the students and staff as your own extended family. Thank you for your dedication, service, and commitment to Rocklin schools. With heartfelt gratitude and appreciation from the teachers and staff, Camille, we would like to congratulate you on your retirement. Thank you.
I just want to say that as a teacher, as a aspiring admin, working summer school last year and the year before as administrator, having your guidance and understanding with our more difficult students during summer school, coming in and offering your advice and listening when there were concerns has been inspiring and overall truly helps guide the way that I look at life as an educator. So thank you.
The common expression is there's no words. I think with Camille, it's that there's too many words. I think we all are well aware if this was not COVID circumstances, we would probably be at a high school gym to have enough space for the people that would like to speak on your behalf, Camille. I'm gonna keep it short, and it's the 2 words, it's thank you. They'll never be enough, but on behalf of everybody that's been touched by you, your family, your service, thank you for everything you do. I've been privileged to be there with your kids in school and also under your guidance as a board member and now an employee, and thank you's not enough, but there's too many words, so thank you. Good luck in everything, and please still pick up our calls.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. All right, Chief Capper, I think we have a couple other public comments on the line. I keep thinking we do. I keep saying.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, great. We can hear you.
Go ahead first. She's good. Up first will be Dr. Patterson. We can.
We can't out here, Diana.
Can they? Dr. Patterson, we're just going to put you on hold for a second. We're having some technical difficulties, and we want to make sure Trustee Maben hears everything. Stand by for a moment.
All right, bear with us.
Weird. Do you think this has anything to do with it?
No, when you space
That's me, right? Yeah.
When you space bar, that should go away.
Okay. Oh. But he couldn't hear me, right, right. Something's going on.
I know you and I did it right.
No, no, this works.
know a lot of people love you. We have technical difficulties, so we're gonna move on from that. But there are several people lined up to wanting to tell you, and we will try to circle back and make sure that their voices get heard. And I apologize for those at home that weren't able to call in. But I do want to continue where we were, and so there's a resolution on the table, and we have a second, and now we'll take board member comments for the resolution, or Camille, as you see fit. Derek?
Yes. So again, and Travis, you said it right, and just wanted to follow up. So there's just a lot of thank yous. So thank you for being that guardian of the public's trust and always putting Rocklin youth first. Thank you for 29 years and seeing all those schools come to be, right? Like the engineer, the construction, all that stuff. I mean, just seeing nothing turn into something is amazing, and that's just a great feat. I want to say also thank you to your family. So thank you for allowing her to be here, for allowing her to be in all those conversations, being around the kids, being around the school, being around all that stuff. Because I know all of us can speak to it, and a lot of people in this room, you're pulled away to do a lot of things. So thank you to your family. Thank you for putting yourself in the conversation. Thank you for watching all that growth that happened in Rocklin. As you said, 3 schools to 16. I mean, it's just amazing that it's gone through that kind of stuff. Thank you for building those schools. Thanks for seeing and administering all the admin changes and always looking out and looking for those kids to get the same opportunity, not the same treatment. So thank you for being an advocate for all those Rocklin youth that have come through. And I don't think any of us will ever see it, but you've seen, like I said, I saw Eric in high school and now he's on the board. You've seen kids come through, families come through. You're a hallmark to Rocklin, and thank you for spending that time and being here. So thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Do you want to wait or do you want to go?
Camille, thank you so much. Personally, thank you for your mentorship and all you've taught me in the time we've had. And I know this isn't the end. This is the end of you and I both sitting up here on the dais, but I know this isn't the end of our relationship, and I'm really happy for that. But I want to say, no one has given more of themselves and their time. No one has volunteered, I should say, no one has volunteered more of themselves and their time for the kids of Rocklin than you. And for the benefit of anybody watching at home who doesn't know you the way we know you, that is not an exaggeration for the sake of a compliment. That's an objective fact. Like, that is really true. You can't find another person in Rocklin who's given more of themselves for our kids. And literally generations of kids are better for it. You advocate for all kids, but especially anyone who spends any time with you sees how passionate you are about advocating for the kids who don't have a voice and who have the fewest people to speak on their behalf, both here in Rocklin, but also just in your professional life. And that is just an amazing thing. You've got a huge heart. You give so much of yourself to everyone. And I'm so lucky I've got to serve on the board with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Gonna go now. I will miss sitting by you and exchanging chocolate under the table. And I will really miss your perspective. I appreciate that there are a lot of times when you would lean over and let me know, we've been here before, we're gonna get out of this, and I appreciate that. This isn't a job for wimps, and I can't believe you've done it this long. And it's impressive, and it's admirable. You don't give this much service to something unless you truly care about it and love it, and it's really clear to all of us. So thank you for what you've given. I love, probably one of my favorite things is when we had a meeting for the people retiring, and you knew everyone. Everyone knew you, of course, but you knew everyone, and that says a lot, because, and listening to what, those are testimonials that are sincere, and people recognize and appreciate what you've given, so thank you.
Oh, my friend. So you were probably one of my first friends in Rocklin. When I moved here 16 years ago, I have a 18-year-old son, and in college, and one of my favorite pictures of him, it's 6 years old, holding up a Camille Maben for school board sign. And we had years of commutes together, talking about education policy and talking about the school board in Rocklin. And it's just been, it's been beyond a pleasure, a personal pleasure to know you, to be with you in all the things, to be with you for years, to be with you on a professional level at CDE, and to be with you here now. And I just can't think of a better human being. I want to join Derek in thanking Mark. I would thank him, but the reason Mark has been a school board spouse for 20 years is because he doesn't watch school board meetings. That's why you're still here. So I know he will not be watching, which I appreciate it. But, and I know it's a family for you. And if you ever want to look at Camille's heart, just look at her family. They are the most amazing human beings, the most amazing group of people who care for each other, are there for each other, stand for each other, and would fight and die for each other. And I think that's the kind of person you inspire to be around you. You're irreplaceable. You've meant the world. I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for you, hands down. And you will be beyond missed. But I do look forward to continuing your voice and your leadership and your involvement, because I know that you will never. I know you will stay involved. You will stay engaged in our schools and our community until your last dying death, and we appreciate it. So, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you. I guess we are ready for public comment. Do you? So hold that. Let's do a few public comments, and then we will let you speak. So let's try one more time. Diana, are we ready? All right, I think we're going to say we appreciate everyone trying to call in. Okay, great. We appreciate everyone trying to call in. I know Dave Patterson from the County School Board called, and others are on, and we will get to their notes. But with that, Camille, please, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay. You okay? Yeah.
I'm sorry, Roger, why don't you say a few words? My apologies.
And just kind of take a point of privilege, if I could, President Miller, is just on, really behalf of both first, but starting with Trustee Stevens, just thank you for, again, your service and for, all of your guidance. It's been not lost on just the kindness you've shown to staff, that your father was a long-serving cabinet member of a neighboring district, and so your regard for the impact that staff, serves and the impact of that work and just the kindness has been deeply appreciated, not just by me, but all of my colleagues as well. And just your willingness to help raise the way we looked at issues and weighed them with just, but also the way you cared about that is remarkable. And I know that the teachers and everyone are so proud that taught you, that as a product of this district that you've come back to serve. I think it's what all of us in the district aspire to. It's in our mission that we want to inspire people to come back and serve, and you're actually testament to that. And I think what a great legacy for our current students to aspire to, of service back to their community from where they've grown up and gained so much. So thank you. Camille, thank you so much for what you've done. And I know Kevin Brown, former superintendent, is well expressed on behalf of the early part of your career as a trustee, but in the last 8 years, just thank you so much for what you've done, what you've meant to this district, and for how you've really, the vision you've had in developing. I think almost every school you walk into, you see your name. And I think that's an enduring testament to what that means. And that goes a lot more from, this place didn't even have high schools, didn't even have secondary schools. And so the vision I think you help create in this community for us is really critical. And our schools are innovative. Our schools take risks. And I think the board allows that. Board encouraged it. Board insisted on it. And you were part of those boards that did that. And it's not lost that our schools are truly innovative because the board fostered a culture of taking those risks. And I think that's why we are truly educational excellence. because of that type of leadership. So thank you, and thank you for always pushing us, because I knew that whenever anything came up, if we didn't think about our youngest learners or some of our other students without voices, foster youth, others, that I always had your voice in my back of my mind saying, what would Camille say? And that will continue to be there for all of us. So thank you so much.
Now, okay, I'm going to take this off. The first thing I said to Roger after the election was, listen, I want to come in, I want to do my last meeting, and I want to get out. Do you hear me? Nothing. It just, because I knew I have been overwhelmed by the kindness, the words, the thoughtfulness of people, recognizing the work that we collectively have done together over a long period of time. It was John Lehman. I was just got home from vacation. I told some guys this story. It was summertime in August, and John Lehman, who was principal at Parker Whitney at that time, called me and said, oh, by the way, I picked up some papers for you to run for school board. And you got to turn them in tomorrow. And I said, you're nuts. What? And you're crazy, John. And so, and Mark was out of town. I called, I said, guess what happened? This is so odd. But little did John Lehman know, nor did I know, that this relationship would last as long as it has. So let me say to folks who are watching and to the community, thank you so much for your support over the years. It has been truly incredible that you've allowed me to serve for this long. And I will always be thankful for that. So to the community, wherever you are out there, thank you for that. I had an opportunity this week to talk with folks and at least to send a note, hopefully to the staff, to let them know how much I appreciate all that they do and all that we have done, again, together over the years. And that I will never forget some of the stories that I share with almost each and every one of you. The funny thing is, and Roger reminded me, I've been a part of hiring all of you, which is kind of scary. But it's something that I'll always treasure, because I think we hire really good people who are willing to really commit their hearts and souls to making this better for kids. And so for that, I, again, am so grateful to each and every one of you, and all of you who are watching or hearing or listening, and who are getting their lessons ready for tomorrow. Keep showing up, because you're doing good work and you're making a difference for children. To my colleagues, and I thank you all so much for your kind words tonight. I wish you the very best. To the friends I've made along the way and different board members, and I've served on all kinds of boards up here, and we've had all kinds of experiences together. But I'm grateful for people's, Derek, I think as you said, their willingness to do this work and to serve. To my children, my 4 children who are now grown-ups, who used to say to me when I'd say, I need to chaperone that dance, or I need to be, and they would say, is that part of being on the board? And I could easily say, yes, that is a part of my responsibility. So to them who put up with me all those years and put up with being a board member's kid, and to all of the teachers who taught them, thank you. Thank you very much. They all turned out pretty well, so that's all good. And most of all, to my husband, to Mark. And you'll be
Watching
surprised.
tonight?
Well, if he figured out how to connect, yes, I think he is watching. I left pretty strict instructions. What you all might not know is that throughout the district, you will see my husband's work, whether it's the trophy case at Rocklin High, or the new planter at Rocklin L, or in many a classroom where he helps kids learn to read. He has been of service to this district as long as I have. And he has put up with, so much. He's put up with me coming in late at night and staring at him until he wakes up so I can talk to somebody about something that's happened. But he has always supported my work here. So thank you. He is a gem, and I'm very lucky, and I know that. And finally, to the 6 people in my life who are perfect: Tommy, Isaac, Liam, Eva, PK, and Cam. They are, in my eyes, perfect, and I love them all. So I'm looking forward to figuring out what the next step is and what the next chapter is. And I've told folks here, and I mean it sincerely, I'm always going to pick up the phone if you call. I will be your thought partner. I will be your historian, and serve in any way I can, because the district and the schools are a part of me. They really are. And I'm so proud of them and so proud of all of us. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything. And I look forward to watching what happens. Candidly, I'm not going to miss this part very much. But I will miss all of you, and I will miss the work. So with that, thank you, President Miller.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? Camille Maben. Thank you.
We do have a few public comment, President Miller. 3rd time's charm.
Okay,
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
yes.
We have fixed the technical problems. Thank you for your patience. Please welcome Dr. David Patterson to speak first.
Camille.
We can hear you, Dave.
Oh, good. Okay, it's working. We'll take 3rd as a charm. Camille, as a fellow board member, as you know, I serve on the Placer County Board of Education representing Rocklin. But what many others might not know is that I had the privilege of serving with you on the Rocklin Unified School Board about 20 years ago. I want to thank you for your 3 decades of service. Thousands and thousands of hours and hundreds of evenings away from your family in service to our students, our families, and our communities. Camille, you and I, we agree sometimes, and sometimes not. But always, I know you serve because you care deeply for all of our children, and for that, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. No one else has their hand up to speak, but there is a name familiar to everyone. Tommy Maben is on. Tommy, would you like to speak?
It's my granddaughter. Is she going to say anything?
Tommy?
Okay, maybe not. Yeah.
Right. All right.
Yes, no, yeah.
Tell me you're there? Okay. Well, we will.
Hi.
Oh, you there?
Yeah.
Great, you're on.
I just want to say I love you, Daddy. I can't think of anything else. I just love you.
I love you too, sweetie.
Thank you.
Back to homework. Okay.
And I will note for the record that you did say, I noticed that you said the perfect with your grandkids. You didn't say that about your kids, so it gives me hope that there is a future for perfection in our family, so I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. With that, let's move on to the agenda. We're going to move on to item 6.2, COVID update. Superintendent Stock.
Well, yet again, I am following Camille Maben, and I have to say I did it to myself this time and helped put the agenda together. So, trustees, I am here before you with yet another COVID update, and as we move through this, we'll just start with the current context, and again, I just think it's an unprecedented situation, constantly changing guidance as we saw this week, and the adaptability and flexibility continues to be essential. Our board and our districts focused on our students and staff, the physical safety, the student learning, and the social and emotional mental health. Just a reminder to the community of where we're at in our phased school reopening. We are in stage 3, where we have been since September 21st, which is our hybrid learning model. The most recent COVID data, and this is available on our dashboard. It's updated every week on Monday afternoon, and we do that so that we can have, verified data from our contact tracing from the week before. And this shows symptomatic cases, exposure to positive cases, and positive cases in our district as staff, students. And what we can say is over the last couple of weeks, we have seen a rate of increase in the number of positive cases. And so any increase is not good. Obviously, we don't want anybody to be sick. But the rate of increase, we have not seen a significant pattern in any specific school or related to any school activity in this increase. And this positive rate increase is low in comparison to what we see in the state and the county numbers, but it is an increase. And the other increase we've seen is in the number of students or staff that have been quarantined due to exposure to positive case. But do want to note that this data is for our 8th week open. We're currently in our 9th week open, which is one of the longest in the state and in the county, and it's a tribute to every single person's work to make sure that this happens. And again, so this is the data that's updated every week on our website. California has a county tiered system for reopening, the blueprint for the economy. And they put each county into one of 4 color categories, and I think by now the public's quite familiar. And the widespread or purple tier is considered to be the where you don't want to be. And we all want to be minimal or yellow. Placer County is currently in the purple widespread tier. It was placed there by the state earlier this week. However, there is no impact to schools in Placer County for reopening or closure. So the good news is that there is no impact to us in regards to our county moving up or down from the different tiers within this. Local and state public health officials have determined, and they've said this publicly, that reopening of schools has not contributed to the increase in COVID-19 cases in our county or in the state. And we are very, very glad that we aren't contributing to that. So schools seem to be a factor of the opening has not been a negative impact in our surrounding communities. However, the increases that we're seeing in the state and county, again, this is reported in the media, this isn't just my opinion, are largely linked to family gatherings and large-scale gatherings. So why that's important, I feel, to mention is for all of us, the students, families, employees, to follow the public health regulations and to be mindful that our actions during the upcoming holiday time will impact our ability to continue to have our campuses open and keep our students on campus where we know the learning is the best. And so we just really ask you to be mindful of what you do during the week off, because that impacts us when we get back. So, and that's just what our public health officials, and I was speaking with them today with other superintendents, reminded us around that as well. So with any situation, there's current opportunities and challenges, and as there always are. So I want to just kind of take a moment and just acknowledge what some of these are. First, the opportunities. Having students on campus for learning and social emotional purposes is a huge opportunity for us to educate them, check on them, support them social emotionally. And that's something that we've seen as I've been out in schools, is students truly are glad to be back with their peers, with their teachers, and to have that sense. And then it also provides access to learning for some of our students and families who were disconnected during distance learning. Not everyone has a supportive environment at home, and so for students that had that disconnect during full distance learning, having them on campus even partial days has provided them access. It also removes the expectation from parents to facilitate daily learning for their students. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we heard from families was, I really appreciate teachers. I did not realize how hard they worked until I had to become a teacher of my own children. And oh my gosh, that's really hard. And also, it is such a highly trained craft that, many of our parents, especially of youngest learners, said, I don't know how to teach somebody to read or how to do, the Common Core math. And so this does relieve the expectation for parents to facilitate that daily learning of their students, especially our elementary kids. And it also restores some semblance of normalcy for kids by being on campus. There's a sense of I get up, I go to school, and that is some normalcy that, frankly, kids need and are looking for. So those are the opportunities. Now, of course, there are challenges. One of those, and we've talked about that before, is ensuring we have enough substitutes for our employees. And this is not just teachers, but our aides, our bus drivers, our custodians. Is we have increasing numbers of staff that are quarantined or out for just normal reasons people go out for. Finding substitutes as other school districts are opening as well is a challenge. The increasing number of students, as I mentioned, quarantined, are not able to access on-campus instruction for all the benefits that I just shared. Asynchronous days, are continuing to be a challenge. Student disengagement. Teachers report that, there's some struggles with students that are not completing a work in the engagement. And then there's a variable amount of student and teacher contact on those at-home days. And then winter weather, as evidenced earlier today by the rain, reduces the options for us for outdoor learning, activities, recess, and lunch. So that is just becoming a challenge for us as well. And so just always want to kind of update the board. We try to embrace the opportunities and work through the challenges. Local school district update, I was asked to provide this. So this just gives a quick look at where different districts are at in their current status or their next potential move. And I'll just highlight a few of these that have changed since I reported last month. Dry Creek, they are planning to move to a modified, all students on campus in January 19th. They're currently in a hybrid. Eureka has moved from distance learning into all students on campus in a modified day, and they began that November 9th. Loomis is planning to move to all students on campus as we move into the next out of the purple tiers, and they just announced that. Placer Union High School District has paused their hybrid learning model for 2 weeks this week and the week after Thanksgiving, and then plans to resume their progression towards all students on campus. Roseville City has gone back with all students on campus in a modified schedule November 4th. And then Folsom Cordova brought their elementary students back on November 12th and plans to bring middle high school students into a hybrid model on January 5th. So what you can see is districts are managing this in all kinds of different ways. There is no right answer. If there was, we would all be following it and doing it. And what we are doing is we are collaborating, we're working together, we are willing to adjust and learn, and that humility of we may not have it right now, but we're working to get it better. And so just wanted to give you the local context and update of what's going on in our district. And then I'm going to turn it over to our Associate Superintendents of Education Services, Bill and Marty, to kind of update a little bit on our efforts to improve our asynchronous days.
Thank you, Superintendent Stock. Good evening, Board of Trustees. As you know, we're committed to continuous improvement, so we wanted to provide you with an update tonight on asynchronous learning, but also on RVC. I'm going to actually invite Ryan Johnson up to talk about the first item, that's the live streaming of audio and video.
Thank you, Board. Appreciate that. Sorry, I was checking on something there. So over the last little bit, we've been testing out some things with wireless microphones and streaming and giving teachers the ability to not only kind of project their voice up through the speakers in the classroom, but have that stream out to their students who are at home. We started out with about a little over 40 teachers piloting this. We've got over 100 teachers now using it. Of that, about 40% used it for the live audio in the classroom to go over the speakers. About a third used it for live audio streaming. And they reported that it really kind of eased up things. It was very easy to use. It allowed the students at home to hear and participate in the learning live with the teachers. Granite Oaks right now is piloting in their math program. Half the teachers are using it and some teachers are not using it, so they can see the effectiveness of it. And the Rocklin High School math department is, most of those teachers are using it currently also.
Thank you, Ryan. One of the other things we learned is that through our survey is that students at home can become disengaged and not complete the required independent work. So we have a couple different PDSAs or attempts to rectify this happening in our classrooms. One of the ideas put forward was meeting live with at-home students in the AM, but also having a meeting in the PM and to check in on students and how they're doing. Several teachers found this increased their independent work completion and accountability with their students, so that was successful and worth scaling. Also, this idea that there's a office hour where students can jump in and get support from students, but many teachers found that students weren't taking advantage of that time. So actually scheduling these one-to-one meetings or small group meetings with specific disengaged students proactively was really successful in getting these students to re-engage and start completing work. Another thing we've learned is that through the survey again is that students self-identifying need structure and access to instruction and more guidance and contact on their at-home or asynchronous days. So two things we've been doing to improve that is providing very detailed schedules for off days and assessments via hyperdocs and other means where students can really check in and follow along. Springview went as far as actually providing a schedule to students and a video of how to use the schedule, teaching them to be independent learners and work through that day. And we found that to be successful. It's increased engagement. Also providing videos that support assignments for either content or extra information that students can use because they can't reach their teachers. That's been successful in terms of engagement and work completion. So all these things are part of the teacher toolkit that we shared in a board communication. It's linked in this presentation as well, but a really great job by our instructional coaches and the team, the asynchronous teacher team, who compiled these resources. All teachers were trained on this resource at a staff meeting 2 weeks ago, and then principals have been following up in terms of supporting these actions in the classrooms.
Great, thank you, Dr. McConnell, appreciate it. Does that wrap up? So here's what I'd like to do. Does that wrap the presentation?
No, I have a little.
Oh, okay.
I have a little bit more. So on Rocklin,
Don't leave. I feel we're gonna have questions for you.
So on Rocklin Virtual Campus, Mr. Flowers.
So as you're well aware, through the leadership of Hannah Anderson, we got this up and running in about 6 weeks, but we've learned a lot. From that, we learned that our secondary courses didn't fully match up with our traditional high school courses, so our content experts modified some of those courses. A total of 45 courses were modified in grades 6 through 12 to really meet what the comprehensive sites were doing. And then in addition to that, our secondary students understand that our RUSD teachers really facilitate the learning, but it's mainly online. So what we learned quickly is that some of our students needed some additional help. So just as our teachers have always done, they've stepped up and started some of these study groups to help them with this material. And once again, we appreciate their work. There's a lot of positive things going on, but it's still, we're learning a lot every single day.
So we also learned, again, through the survey and feedback, that students and parents needed support with the actual platform and the online learning in general. So we've been successful with providing one-to-one support for teachers, from teachers to parents and students, either live in one-to-one meetings or by asynchronous how-to videos. And that's helped everybody kind of get up to speed on this new technology. We also know that the RVC staff needed more support. All these teachers came into this program brand new, never done this before. Online teaching was also new. So that hiring of an assistant principal and an instructional coach using those COVID funds was able to provide a high level of support for teachers in that program. Over the past 4 to 5 weeks, we've seen a lot of stabilization in that program and a lot of teachers feeling more confident about the work they're doing with students in RBC.
And so again, what we just want to again acknowledge, because we plan and we replan, is that as the guidance changes, the health orders do, we will revise. Again, every action is subject to modification as necessary during implementation, as you've just heard. And given that no plan is final, and they will continue to evolve as this pandemic does as well. So next steps, we're going to continue to implement stage 3 hybrid learning. We'll continue efforts to improve the model, not just to implement the model. And then on December 14th, the board will be taking up the item at our regularly scheduled December meeting on in-person learning and what stage we'll be in for the second semester, January 11th. We'll continue to communicate updates to all of our stakeholders and to collaborate with our labor partners and to continue to learn and adapt. And so, President Miller, trustees, that concludes my COVID update for November 18th.
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate it. Colleagues, what I'd like to do is this. If you have specific questions about anything that was raised from the superintendent or Dr. McDonald or Marty, why don't we ask those? Then we're going to take public comment, and then we can go back again if people have regular comments they want to make. So with that, let me open it up to questions anyone may have of our colleagues. Derek?
And again, getting on to the hybrid learning and the asynchronous day, at least the high school level, which I'm probably more familiar with, and even the junior high level, how much time are we connecting, on average, with the student? And because I can tell you from personal experience, we're still at that 5, 6, 7 minutes a day, and then it's left up to go on and prosper.
So what I'll say is we are asking all of our principals to follow up and check in on that. You are correct. We're meeting the Senate Bill 98 by doing that daily check-in. We have teachers that are trying a number of different things as far as the flipped classroom. So on that asynchronous day, there may not be a whole lot of interaction because the students were given that work either the day before as to practice work, or they were given the work ahead of time, once again, like that flipped classroom, so they're prepared for the next day in class. Again, a number of teachers doing screencastified ed puzzles. Those are the things that have been reported to us. The challenge has been a majority of the kids are doing it, but we still have a handful of kids that are not being as active as they should be on those days.
Okay.
Can I?
Please.
How do I say this? So what do parents know about their kid? I mean, you hope that parents are kind of checking in. Are you on, are you online? And their concerns are there, their kids aren't. But do we kind of say to parents, guess what? Haven't seen, your student has checked in, or how does that work? How are we keeping them informed or are we? I just am curious about that.
So in terms of student engagement, is
Yeah.
that the question?
Yeah.
So we do have a tiered response system that we're required to do by the state, but it is a situation where a teacher's monitoring engagement every day and tracking that.
Yeah.
If they reach a situation where the student's been disengaged for 2 days in a week, they're going to reach out via email or a call and make contact with the family. And if it exceeds that, then they move into a second tier where the principal and office is involved in terms of following up.
Yeah.
And then we would schedule a meeting. So we do have procedures in place to address that.
Okay.
But it starts with the teacher reaching out if a student's disengaged and not showing up for school.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question about the dashboard. I've seen some community comments and questions about it. And I think that I remember that every district, is it December 31st or January 31st, has to have a dashboard up on their website. And so ours looks really different than some of our neighboring districts. Do we have the information up now that is going to be required in the future?
We do meet the reporting requirements, and
Okay.
part of that was actually informing employees of any affected cases, which we've done since day one. And then our dashboard does meet the requirements. And I appreciate you bringing up that There are differences in dashboards. We were the first district to put up our information, and we're always working to improve that, such as school level and things like that. And so we do meet the legal requirements at this time.
Thank you. I have one more question. Can the district investigate and put together a proposal K through 12 for an AM PM cohort so that we can still socially distance and yet give all students an opportunity for in-person learning? I'm concerned about meeting December 14th and what our options are going to be. I feel personally like I need some more options for families, and so I would appreciate some more information on that being a possibility.
So just to clarify, so looking at asking us to develop what some different options are for returning students to school 5 days a week, such as an AM, PM model, and any other possible options that we can consider.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll work to do that and as we move forward. Thank you.
Couple questions, Marty or Hannah. So on RVC, first of all, I just want to thank you for continuing to increase our offerings, which I think is important and matters. Do we know anything about folks who are enrolled in our RVC and their experience? Have we done any polling of folks or asking folks how they're experiencing RVC?
We have. In October, I believe, there was a survey that went out to all families for asynchronous. And in that survey, we actually were able to collect, and the distance learning survey, so both in September and October, we surveyed our families and were able to collect information that was turned over to the administrators to take action within RVC to make changes, as well as RVC conducted their own survey that had additional information specifically around curriculum and what was working for families within the curriculum, what was working well for students, what was working well for staff, and then what areas could have been improved. And so they have been working together as a school site team to make those changes, and we'll continue to do so as it's a new program and we're learning and growing every single day.
And do you know, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, you might not have it, but do you know the top line in terms of generally whether or not folks that are enrolled in RVC are satisfied with the, recognizing we're in a pandemic, nothing's perfect, but are they generally satisfied with the?
I think there's a general satisfaction around continuing to be appreciative that there is an at-home model. I think that there are always going to be difficulties when you're learning an entirely new model as a family, and I think we continue to look for ways specifically with our youngest learners to try to meet their needs in Rocklin Virtual Campus. That seems to be a big difficulty in terms of we know that 5- and 6-year-olds don't learn independently, right? And so when you have an at-home day that may require more additional ways, and so we're looking actually at other ways that we can modify curriculum, and so we might have a few different offerings for families so that they can select within RVC what's working best for them. So it continues to be looking at information that's coming in and trying to make those best fit decisions. At the same time, we're also wanting to be thoughtful around teachers are new at this too.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we give them adequate time to implement before we continue to change on them. We also have had a lot of influx of families joining RVC.
Right.
And so it's only been about the last 3 weeks where there's been stability in classrooms in Rocklin Virtual Campus. And when you're bringing in 1, 2, 3 new students into your classroom on an ongoing basis, it becomes more challenging, right, to continue to modify your curriculum. They're doing it. They're doing a wonderful job. We do know that we want to continue to grow.
Thank you. The other question I had, and it's probably for all three of you, I'm not sure who it's for, so I'll just put it out there and then I want to jump in. So one, I appreciate the update and the work we're doing around the simulcasting, the video, the async day, the improvements we're making. My concern, however, is that I hear great singular examples. I don't hear great systemic examples of how if you're a student in Rocklin, you're guaranteed a certain level of instruction, and it doesn't seem to be consistently happening across our district. And so I wonder what your thoughts are, these great examples of where someone's volunteered to do something or someone stepped up, it's happened in a classroom. How do we do a better job of ensuring every student in Rocklin gets the most high quality instruction they can in the middle of a horrible pandemic? So I I guess you're sitting in front of me, so you get to.
So I would say that the efforts are what I named, which is we developed this toolkit, we rolled it out to teachers and shared it as a resource, and then we're working with them and our principals to get these things implemented in classrooms. And I'll be the first one to say that because of what we're dealing with in terms of the pandemic, that's not probably not getting the normal compliance that we would or the normal buy-in, because a lot of people are doing what they can to do the best they can right now, honestly. But we're going to continue to push those things out and look for consistency and roll out best practices as long as we're in this model and strive to improve.
And yeah, go ahead,
I would just like to add, not that I disagree with you, but I have to give a lot of credit to our teachers, because they are trying a number of different things, and they are talking to their kids, what's working, what's not working. And I could speak, from personal experience, seeing that, okay, that didn't work. Only 50% of my kids did it. But that is the biggest challenge. It's not that they're not providing the work, but it's getting the kids to engage in that. And then the other thing is
in their async day. In other words, it's being assigned, something's happening, but then nothing's happening at home. So how do we make sure the kids are engaged?
Correct. But the challenge is getting our students to persevere and just don't give up.
Yeah.
In the classroom where you can raise your hand and you get that immediate feedback, at home they're not able to get that. And even though we do have some office hours in the late afternoon, whether teachers are reaching out or kids are available at that time, that's been the challenge at the secondary level. Yeah. So then the next day when the kids show up and the teachers are talking about that flipped classroom and they're not able to understand it, now teachers are having to change their lesson plan for that day to kind of get part of that class up to speed so you can still move forward as a group.
Okay. I appreciate that. It's helpful. Okay, and then I see. I opened up a hornet's nest.
I have an RVC question. I know we've talked about what are our AP classes and our electives, and what are we looking at for maybe next semester with AP classes?
I knew better than moving back. So we absolutely are looking to make some adjustments for the second semester. So one of the pieces that we did when we were scheduling students for first semester was schedule them into courses that we knew were part of the core piece through Edgenuity. And then we moved some of the subscription-based courses into the second semester so that we could see where we were. Obviously, we would like to be able to offer students AP classes with our Rocklin Unified teachers, right? And so if we were going to be able to move them back to a traditional school to offer those courses, we would have preferred to do that. Given where we are and the number of students who want to stay in the Rocklin Virtual Campus, we will, in selected cases where students are going to need AP courses for meeting A through G compliance, or they are already, or if they were going to need a course to meet a 2-year world language requirement, we are going to be on a case-by-case basis being able to offer some e-subscription-based courses to make sure that we meet the needs of the students in RVC. We are also looking at what the ongoing supports are for students in those AP classes. So making sure that they have access to the study groups that are being led by not maybe just their facilitator teacher, but maybe it's another facilitator teacher within the Rocklin Virtual Campus that actually has a credential in that area. We are also looking to link them with traditional schools to make sure that we can provide those ongoing supports for AP, and those are in the works. I think Marty can share a little bit more about what that looks like, but we can update the board when we have more information about it.
So just one thing to add, even though we really pushed those off for second semester with the hope that they would be able to return, as Hannah mentioned, we have piloted a couple students that transferred that were currently in AP, because we want to be able to fix, work out those bugs that we may run into. So we are starting to do that, so we'll be better prepared when we start in second semester.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Camille?
Yeah, so not about RVC, but Ryan talked to us a little bit about teachers using kind of a streaming method, and are we finding that when that happens, those students in those classes are more likely to stay engaged with the class, on those days? I mean, are we seeing that benefit or not?
Yes, that was reported out in math classes where the people that I've talked to, for kids that get it that day when the teacher's there, but then by the time you go home 24 hours later, they're missing a part, and they can zoom in and receive that. They can hear that instruction a second time. They can even ask questions. So it has been beneficial. And again, through Ryan's leading this project, I believe we purchased 260 of those. So we have, since this time, over 100 teachers now have access to that. And again, we continue to push that out moving forward, because we want to make sure, number one, we use all 260 of those. And once again, as we continue to move forward in a 5-day, teachers might be speaking a little bit more, and it might be a little bit louder, so maybe we'll have more success in doing that.
Right, and do we have anybody who's just continuous learning? So even those, and maybe it's some of the math classes where it's not a repeat of the day they just had, but it's everybody going forward, some of them virtual on the days they're home? Is that
correct? I don't know if there's consistency where a kid is logging in every day. My understanding of the people, once again, I've talked to are kids when they run into trouble, then they log in.
Yeah.
But again, trying to get that available to as many teachers as possible is what we're working on right now. And again, what we've done so far has been successful.
And there are teachers who are streaming throughout the day, and each day, students are logging in from home or in the classroom. I know several teachers who are doing that all day in elementary, and some who are subject specific.
Yeah.
So math classes
Yeah,
live every day,
whatever.
or ELAs live every day.
It seems like if we can make that work, that would, keep kids going.
Yeah, I guess in the same regard, are we seeing, does it have more traction in math? Does it have more traction at a specific school? Does it have more traction at a specific grade as far as that program?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know that exactly. Again, the people that I've talked to, a lot of the math teachers at Rocklin High have used it. Special education teachers have used it as well. But I'd be happy to gather that information and get it back to you in a board communication.
My feeling on that question is, probably a fraction of our teachers on March 13th had done anything like this. So, 9 months later, some of them have I would say most of them have moved on that spectrum hugely. Like the growth in using technology to teach online has been amazing, but there's still a spectrum. So I think the teachers who are doing the live streaming are some of our ones who are very comfortable. So it's kind of that cohort of the willing right now. We'd love to see that expand. I think what we've done with this wireless technology has moved some other people along that road, and we'll continue to build capacity, but there's still a spectrum of people out there that this is uncomfortable, and it's new, and it's challenging. So we're working through that, but it'll take time.
Great. The final thing I want to say is I appreciate Rochelle's request to think about different models of 5 days. I also want to make a tangential request for you to come back with thinking around, I think we're all increasingly worried about, I don't know how to define it, I'll define it as the quarantine day, kids that are quarantined and home for long periods of time. And frankly, whether we're hybrid or 5 day, this is going to continue until we have a vaccine. And if we actually end up going full 5 day, it will increase. So we're going to have a lot of kids. We already have a lot of kids that are home. And it was one thing if you get one sick one time a year and you do independent study for a few days and it's horrible, whatever. This could be multiple days, multiple times kids could be quarantined. So thinking about, I know it's really hard to do, but thinking about within our capacity, what our options are to sort of try to see if we can bring them along. Is there a way we can cohort some video streaming for some kids? I don't know, and I know that's hard because it depends where they are on the curriculum, but trying to think some way of it other than just going on an independent study in that time would be appreciated if we could have additional thoughts around that.
Yeah, we will be prepared to share some additional thoughts and on that.
Great. Okay, unless there's any other comments, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take a public comment, and I'm going to take a quick break, just a minute. I've seen the comments, so there's only like 2 or 3. I did notice it's under non-public, but it's actually related to this. So why don't we literally take a 1-minute break, take a quick look. I'll see if there's any online, and then we can wrap this up and go from there. Thank you.
Go back up to 2.1. I was in sevens, so 2.1. Oops. Okay.
Okay, we have one person who's called in to make public comments, so why don't we do that, and then we will wrap up.
Thank you, President Miller. Casey Emery is going to be first for public comment.
Great.
Hello.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. So I have two daughters that attend 2nd and 4th grade at Rocklin Elementary. So I want to first give thank you to the trustees and the superintendent for taking the time to listen to my comment. I first want to also thank the teachers, custodians, administrators, and staff in our schools who are doing so much more with so much less. They are appreciated, and we know that this would not be possible without all their hard work and efforts. Just last week at Rocklin Elementary, 22 kids were pulled from their classes to put into quarantine from exposure to a COVID positive person at the after-school program. In addition, all the 4th and 5th grade classes were quarantined due to one of the teachers testing positive. My 4th grader's gate class was the only one left to not be quarantined until yesterday. We received the notice that she would be distance learning for the rest of the week. We as a family knew the risk we were taking up by keeping our kids in the hybrid program. We felt it was worth it because we trusted our administration and teachers to work hard to keep our kids safe. What we didn't expect was that when we received the notice of a possible exposure, that we would receive it 10 days after the exposure date. 10 days. 10 days of still being in class, 10 days of coming home every day from school to her parents and her little sister, 10 days of not knowing that she'd been exposed, 10 days of when she would have been the most contagious, and 10 days when we did not quarantine to keep our community safer. This is unacceptable. I understand there are many factors that are out of our control. Lagging test results, lagging parents who delay getting their kids tested, parents who don't get their kids tested, parents who do not get them tested and send them to school anyways. With all these uncontrollable factors, I'm seriously concerned with what the next few months will look like. Placer County numbers are rising in cases and hospitalizations, as they are very much rising in the district. As of 11/17, we've had a total of 51 cumulative cases. The numbers are rising by the week. I understand that we're losing a couple of board members who, from my understanding, will not be voting on going back 5 days a week. They're going to be replaced by people who ran on the one issue of opening schools no matter what. My plea to the new and remaining board members is to please look at all the information and vote for the safety of students and staff, as I hope they are listening and paying attention. Do not fall for the demands of the masses, be objective and listen to the facts. I'm asking that the board and superintendent take this time to research and look into ways that we can have rapid testing and reporting, decreasing numbers in the district as well as the county. In addition, we as parents would like a more transparent tracking dashboard. Many of us feel as if we're in the dark as we send our children into the lion's den. RTP has posted a live tracking of weekly cases and would be even more helpful to have numbers by site with a listing of how many cohorts or classes are quarantined due to exposure or possible exposures. Thank you to Eric Stevens and Camille Maben for your service and dedication to our district, and thank you for hearing me tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, colleagues, any other final comments before we wrap this agenda item up? Okay, thank you very much, thank you. Okay, before we move on to the next item, Chief Capper, if you could turn the line off, thank you. Continuing on our Camille Maben night, we have a special guest who's coming. I promise we won't do this all night, but only former board presidents are allowed to do this. But Greg Daly has kindly stood up, waiting to come in and say a personal word for you. So I want to invite Greg to the table to please give some comments.
Thank you, President Miller. So, first of all, thank you for letting me come and speak. I was online when we were having difficulty. And then being a numbskull that I am, I was thinking today was a switch out. So I go, I'll just meet Camille outside when she comes out. You know, I would wait a month. But that was a little bit too long. Had I known I was actually coming in, I would have had my best mask on. But first of all, just an observation. It's pretty amazing. I mean, I really don't follow the board anymore. But your diligence, your thoughtfulness, especially during the COVID and all that what your discussion was, just for our kids is impressive for all of you. So I want to thank you all for what you've done. Second, Eric, it's time, huh? So I didn't get to serve with you, but it's time. And I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know you've done a really good job. Have done very well for yourself. So there is, now you have some more nights off with the family. But I do appreciate your service. And then Camille. So back in 2001, after 9/11, I had the opportunity to come to a board meeting. And Camille spoke. I wasn't on the board at the time. And she was so articulate. She was so professional. I was moved and motivated. Later on, when things happened, I got involved, and I was fortunate enough to be elected to the board as well. I loved every part of it except for running for re-election. Never enjoyed that. But at the same time, working with the staff and the people and the teachers, it was absolutely amazing. But Camille took me under her wing, as she has done for many board members, and helped teach me many, many lessons of how to conduct myself, how to think for myself, and how to articulate in a more professional or wiser manner, and to extract the best information we can always get for the dedication to our kids. It was an honor and privilege to serve with you. I don't want to take a lot of your time because I know how light this is, but it was truly important enough to me to come say goodbye and know that, that we love you and always will. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 7.1, our public comment. This agenda item is included to give anyone in attendance an opportunity to ask questions or discuss non-agenda items with the board. The board is not permitted to deliberate or take action on non-agenda items, but may refer the matter to a staff member for follow-up. A complaint about a specific employee of the district shall be made to that employee's immediate supervisor or the principal as required by Administrative Regulation 1312.1. Guidelines for submitting verbal comments are available under agenda item 2.1. The public may submit a verbal public comment via live Zoom or written public comment. There is, again, a 3-minute time limit. Written public comments will not be read aloud during the meeting, although the board will pause to read written comments during the meeting. So with that, I'd like to ask, I see we've read through all the written public comments. Chief Capper, are there any audio public comments?
No, President Miller.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, with that, I will move on to employee organizations reports. Is Chuck? Oh, great. Okay, so with that, we will go to the California School Employee Association President's Report. Chuck Haddix, I believe Chuck is on the line.
Good evening.
Hey, Chuck. Chuck, you still there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Great, yep, we can hear you great.
Oh, I don't know what happened. It muted, unmuted, and then muted and unmuted.
2020.
The wonders, the wonders of technology.
Yeah.
President Miller, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Stott, good evening. I want to start by saying thank you to Camille and Eric for your time, thoughts, tough choices, and your service to our USD. Thank you very much for you guys' hard work. You are going to be missed. I'm not very good with goodbyes, but I guarantee you'll be missed. So congratulations to you both, and be safe on your life's journeys ahead. And with that, now I'd like to talk about the full opening of schools versus staying in a hybrid model. Our county, as well as we know, has went from orange tier to red and into the purple in what seems to be like the blink of an eye. We still are not staffed up enough. We still are not staffed up enough in all classified departments to even consider opening up in a full campus of students. There has been shortage of bus drivers, custodians, nutrition workers, and that's just to start it. COVID will have a greater chance of spreading throughout the district if we have full campuses, and that will shut us down. Right now in hybrid, it's at least working. Everyone is just getting used to the larger workloads that we all have had to take on with only what has been a skeleton crew of people, but yet we're making it work. Let's keep working in a hybrid model at least until after the New Year's holiday and see if we can move back down a few tiers, or if it's going to be the beginning of the second wave as it has been predicted. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Any board comments for Chuck? Great. We appreciate it. Thank you for your time. With that, we're going to move to, thanks, Chuck. With that, we're going to move to Rocklin Teachers Professional Associate, RTPA President, Travis Mojet. Travis.
All right, hello and good evening again. I didn't want to steal any of Camille's thunder, and I don't know how there's any way we could do that, but I do want to acknowledge Eric's service as well. Again, Eric, as much as I like to compare myself to you, since I feel like we're so similar all the time, you and I hold unique perspectives that a lot of people in this room don't, as being students and now employees, if you will, of the district. So I think that's been a great perspective you brought to the board and to all the conversations you've been involved in. One that stands out specifically is your perspective with our labor management committee. I think that, obviously that's an area we all recognize as of concern and of need. I'm hopeful that we get back to that sooner than later. I'm optimistic to see what it's going to look like, without you moving forward, and what that change in dynamics are going to be. But I do appreciate your time there and your service as a board member as well. So, maybe our paths will cross with your students' names on our class rosters in the near future. Maybe not mine in the near future, but nonetheless. And again, Camille, there's too many words, like I said. Greg showing up here in person, I think, says it all. So thank you, Rick, I appreciate you giving him that a few minutes there. So just a few things. Obviously, there's a big meeting coming December 14th. Everybody, call it the elephant in the room, if for lack of a better description. Some things that are a little concerning, though, and I'm sure you board members are hearing about it, so I doubt that anything I'm going to talk about is new news, but just for the sake of us having a dialogue about it, Superintendent Stock reported, a thorough report on where we're at with our COVID update, kind of where we're at with school models, where we're at with cases and numbers. And I really appreciate the parent that called in from Rocklin Elementary, because that's the same requests that we've heard as teachers in our classrooms. A lot of concerns around numbers and things, and dashboards, specifically transparency. I've heard from a lot of elementary teachers this week as they've been in conferences, and parents have just been a lot more candid with those requests. Things like, I know Superintendent Stock presented all the different schools on that, and while I appreciate our dashboard is legal, I think there's a lot of transparency that could be added to that dashboard. Whether it's by school site, I know there's some privacy that I understand and fully respect that, but I think we can do better. If nothing else, I love, and we've even started to help answer some of the community's requests. We've started putting out a collaborative spreadsheet. We're using the exact numbers that are on the district page, but when you put them all in one spreadsheet and people can kind of see the patterns and the connections, I think it resonates just a little bit differently and gives a better picture. One thing that concerns me is we keep talking about, well, it's only this many positive cases, and maybe they weren't connected to school, maybe they were, but it's the exposures, right? We had 200 plus students the last couple of weeks, and a handful of staff included that are out now because of an exposure at school. Whether the positive case was contributed to a school event or not, the positive exposure was contributed to school. I think that's something we need to heavily consider. The report we heard tonight, I know it's kind of been the dead horse of the year, is the substitute problem, right? And I fear that as we move towards a more in-person model or a more regular in-person model, Rick, I think you said it best, it's going to get worse, right? Or it's not going to get any better, at least. And so I hope that as I appreciate Trustee Price asking what other creative ways can we look at to different models or, things. I think we need to also look at some other creative ways on how we can address classrooms when people do need to go out. I really appreciate the flexibility of the district, specifically our Rocklin Elementary group, and they're not the only one, but they're just one of a handful that have been offered an opportunity to just teach distance learning. The entire group is out, the teacher's still connecting every day live with them. versus the practice before was let's plug a sub in the room and hope things work out until the teacher or the students or whoever involved can come back. So, and I know that need is out of necessity, but I think it's also, I think we can all agree that's best for kids, is whether it's virtual or not, there is no replacing their regular teacher, no matter how good our substitutes are, that it's just not the same. And we've done that across the board in a lot of areas. I've worked a lot with both Tony and Matt lately in personnel, offering similar opportunities to different areas around the district, primarily elementary. I think right now we've got half a dozen elementary cohorts that are out with teachers teaching distance learning, and that's the best version of continuity that we can provide given all the circumstances. So I hope we can continue looking at ways to grow and expand that as we move forward. The other area of concern is, and I know because I'm copied on the emails with you board members, there's a lot of concern about the survey that was pushed out about RVC and 5 days a week and the board decision coming in December. And while I understand that survey, and there was a follow-up explanation, that survey was data collection to kind of see where shifts might be needed in staffing, and I fully appreciate that conversation. I'd be curious are those survey results, solidified yet? What do we, what if any, and this might be a question more to you, Roger, but what do those survey results look like? And then along with that, do we have any intent to survey our community? And when I say community, I mean our parents, I mean our teachers, and I genuinely mean our students, but where are they at with all of this? Because we're hearing in the classroom almost daily from every grade level. I mean, I hear from TK teachers all the way up to senior level teachers. The kids are genuinely concerned, right? And whether we, the media is blowing it out of proportion or the concern is on a school campus or not, people are concerned because that's the environment where they're mixed with a lot of people and a lot of people with varying perspectives and varying opinions on how everything should be handled. And so there's a lot of concern there. And when kids are in the classroom and raising their hand and asking their question about school safety, we've got to do something to it. That can't be on their plate. Their plate is academics and being a 12-year-old or being a 14-year-old or being a 6-year-old. It shouldn't have to, especially at school, it should not have to have that extra asterisk of, am I safe here? What's it going to look like? Senior level AP students asking their teacher, you mean somebody's going to be sitting right here next to me? Like, how are we going to social distance? And how are we, and the teacher's left with the honest answer of we're not. I mean, because I don't know how we answer that question truthfully if we fill the room, how do we truly social distance? And so I think there's a lot of, and I know that's a big conversation, there'll be a lot of input, but just things, we have a month to kind of vet these questions and, seek some input. So I really hope, and I know, lucky Eric, lucky Camille, there are some, like you said, Camille, some silver linings of some of the pieces to this, but I really hope that you're willing and able to address all those concerns or at least put some thought into that as we move forward. The last piece is, President Miller, you mentioned, the update talked about individual success examples across the board and how can we find a systemic solution possibly. And I appreciate that. One area I would give a lot of advice and recommendation, if you want systemic change, we need systemic change on the requirement and the workload piece, right? Everybody's plate is beyond full. So if we're going to try to implement some sort of systemic change, what's going to come off that plate to allow that change to happen? And there's a lot of pressure of asynchronous days and at-home days, and how can we improve that? But we haven't really seen the data, and maybe you have, but that the asynchronous day outside of student motivation is a problem. And I don't know, however magical, solution and however much technology we throw at it, I don't know that we can fix student motivation when students aren't in class. So, and I understand that's an argument and a positive to putting kids on campus more often. But what I would like to see is there a correlation to the same students that struggle at home? Are those the same students that struggle in class, right? And I would venture to say, I know in my classroom there was a pretty similar connection. So I don't know, and I'm going to kind of talk over my shoulder at Marty and Bill. I don't know if they have a way or if they've seen data that looks at that or how we would collect that data. But the other piece too is when we look at data, we look at the engagement, right? We look at, the attendance and the teacher input and stuff. But what we don't look at is that, and I will confidently say that there isn't a teacher that's waiting for it's been 2 days in a week for us to reach out and say, hey, Rick, you haven't been in class yet. I promise you that's happening every time that kid isn't in class. You know, and whether it's the teacher forgetting that kid is isolated and can't be in class or whatever, but that's happening more often than not. So I think that data is just a small piece of that equation, and I think we need to, you know, give a lot more credit to the humans in that relationship, especially now that we've had time to develop relationships in our classrooms with all of our students. And then the last piece is the inevitable shift. So we did a survey to see what it might look like shifting students and staff into an RVC model or into a 5-day-a-week model, if that's the chosen path. But I really hope that there's a lot of thought and emphasis given onto the impact that shift has. Well, RVC may be an option for some, and it might be a, you know, a solution to some of our concerns. It's going to create, and I know Hannah could probably speak to this more than any of us, it's going to create a whole new world of challenges and changes. RVC is doing a lot of great things, but they're just kind of finding their stride, right? They've done a lot of work with no time at all. You know, and talking to RVC staff and RVC administration, there's a lot of concern that they've gotten a handle on how to onboard new students. They've done that a little bit here and there, how to transition students out, but there's no handbook on how to onboard, you know, 10, 15 new teachers with entire classes, and school starts tomorrow or next week or whatever the timeline would be. So just a lot of areas of change, and, you know, and again, the giant elephant of what are numbers doing in our county and in our state, and colored tiers, and I think we're all knowledgeable that, you know, the state can put us in purple, and that for school-wise doesn't really mean anything, but we don't have to just let that determine, right? You as a school board have the authority to decide what that means for us. You can take that proactive or that best for Rocklin approach, whatever color tier we're in. I know Superintendent Stock and I spoke extensively about the approach that Placer Union took with their pausing, and their numbers as far as COVID on campuses are far lower than ours. Their model is definitely different than ours as well. But I think the acknowledgement that whether COVID is happening on campus or not, schools are contributing to the numbers across the state, right? I mean, we were in a much better place before we opened schools across the state. And I'm not saying schools are the only contributor, but they're part of it. Because whatever we're exposed to in these meetings at work, in our social groups, Superintendent Stock spoke about this, and I appreciate he and I are going to work on some communication out to our community to really emphasize, like, be smart over the break so we can come back to school and not come back to distance learning. But we also need to acknowledge that whatever happens over the break is coming back into our classrooms. And how can we best serve that? And not just this break, but probably more importantly, the winter break. That's going to be longer, you know, deeper into the cold and flu season, and all of those other concerns that come as the weather forces us inside and social interactions start to pick up a little bit more. So again, I know that's a lot. There's a lot to be talked about and discussed, but just areas of concern and just genuine anxiety out there, right? There's so much out there that's unknown. And the reality that last time we were in purple, we weren't allowed to open schools. But now that we're in purple, there's potentially discussion happening. Are we going back to a full school model? So, and again, I know that's a lot to think about, but we have a month to do some really good homework on this process and what creative models we can potentially put on the table versus a one-size-fits-all. Because I think that's the best thing we all know is nothing's a one-size-fits-all anymore. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Any comments or questions for Travis? Derek?
Yeah, just real quick, and thank you for, I guess, acknowledging and understanding that, and I guess the analogy I've heard before is we're flying the plane and we're building it at the same time, right? Nobody knows what tomorrow looks like. Nobody knows what next week looks like. Nobody knows what next month looks like, right? We can all forecast trends. If, you know, again, if you could do that, you'd have bought Microsoft in '87 and you'd be a millionaire and you'd be doing everything right now. So as much as it's difficult to react and thankful, I think that we're making our decision a little later. We can see some of the trends from the other schools, see how things are going. Superintendent Stock does a very good summary of where we're at. So we'll make the decisions. When we make decisions, we'll figure the things out. We'll take them all into account. But just thank you, and I appreciate that we're all being flexible. I know teachers are trying to work through different things, coming up with different plans. The goal is always trying to be what's best for kids, and continuing to encourage those ideas and try to, and being flexible with all of that stuff. From a teacher standpoint, Craig, with your guys, Chuck was on there. I mean, nobody knows what tomorrow looks like. We keep coming in, we keep punching in, we keep trying our best. So thank you for that. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you for everybody doing that. And just know that all of us continue to look. We'll figure it out, but none of us can predict the future. Nobody wants mass death and hysteria and everything. And it's difficult to it sounds silly, to worry about something you don't know. I can't answer anything to that. I mean, I commend you for showing up and for working with the kids and doing the right things, but it is going to be tough. It's tough no matter what we do. So, but thank you. Thank you for continuing to forge on.
Do you have any questions, Eric?
I'll ask a follow-up question to the superintendent. My memory is that when we started publishing the case data online, our goal was to eventually be able to show it broken out by school. Is that still a goal? Is that, you're nodding your head?
Yeah,
Okay.
It is still a goal, and part of that is getting it to an automated piece where and so frankly, we've been focused on the internet a little bit. And so we're working towards getting that out there. And then the other challenge while we're on the data of showing, we keep a live contact tracing dashboard that we can see in that leadership piece to give us an overview of, are there trends developing in a day? Are there things we can see? And the challenge with having a live stream of our working data is that it's not verified data. The contact tracing may not have caught up. Our first instance is to inform employees and families of any cases, because we know that at your school or your work site you want to know, families want to know, as we heard our caller. And so the contact tracing, that live streaming piece dashboard that some of us in leadership see to look at trends, is just that. So it may not have caught up on that piece, but the letters are already out. So what we want to do is make sure our community sees verified data that they can then use to take a look at versus ever-changing data that's coming in a live stream way, which really could be confusing. So we are working to look at other districts' dashboards and look to always continue to evolve. And a few folks have sent me some examples, and so we're looking at that. We aren't stuck as where we're at, but we'll continue to do that, and then definitely want to get to the school level as well. So,
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Price?
Can you also talk a little bit about the privacy behind the contact tracing? I want to be sure that our community understands that, yes, we had, I'm not sure, I'll use, you said 200 and something, I haven't looked at it today, but students that were exposed at home, those students were not all exposed at school, and those families are told how they were exposed. When the nurse calls, can you just clarify that?
right, and I'll do that, and then I'll also invite Dr. McDonald to add in any further clarification in the contact tracing. So when, if a student has been exposed to a positive student, there's a letter that goes out to the family, and so they're notified you've been exposed to somebody positive. We can't say who it was because of the FERPA and the other privacy requirements. So we can't say it was a student sitting next to you, it was the person that drove your bus. And so we can just say you were exposed and it was determined that you were. So you now need to quarantine per public health guidance. And that can be frustrating because you want to know, but we're prohibited from sharing that. And it's the same with staff. We can't share it was this coworker that exposed you. It was you were exposed to a coworker. And so that's the notification process that we use. And we work to do that as quickly as we can in the contract tracing mechanisms and to get that information out. And so sometimes it involves multiple phone calls back and forth to determine who that exposure was. And in other times it's done right at the school, and we can say, okay, who was within 6 feet of that student, and then, or in our elementary, it's the entire cohort that is excluded, and so that's the mechanisms we use. But we aren't able to share who specifically exposed you, unfortunately. And Dr. Manoff, you want to add or clarify anything I've said?
No, that's accurate, and whenever there's an exposure to a positive case or a positive case itself, families are notified that same day, staff is notified that same day. I think the public comment we got was an interesting case because, you know, in that case, a student is sent home with symptoms of COVID. They're home for 6 or 7 days. They go get a COVID test. That takes 2 or 3 days to get a result. Then they're a positive test 10 days later, and then the site is notified. But that student hasn't been at school in 10 days, so they haven't exposed other kids, but the notice would still go out, right? So I can understand where that might cause confusion for parents, but we're still keeping kids safe in terms of that tracing.
Thanks. And we do notice that many of those, they were symptoms sent home, and then they become, so when we look at the end of the dashboard that we see, the tracking piece, we'll often see exposed, but the number of students excluded may be very small because they were not at school when they were positive in that symptomatic piece. But it is something that Dr. McDonald explained, how those pieces work, where there seems like a delay, but it's not in the following of the public health protocols.
Thanks.
Do you have any questions, Travis?
I don't have a question. I don't have a question, only Travis, as I was listening to you and the other conversation, you know, one question or one point brought up brings up 20 other questions. And to think about how interwoven and how complicated these conversations are. So, as you said, you know, we have a few weeks to really delve into it, but just understanding how complicated, it's not as simple as, you know, if we do this, then this happens. It's if we do this, then all of these things it has an effect on them, or it changes something, and so as you all go forward and have these conversations, you know, I would just say, you know, be mindful of each other as you bring up all of these other things, and in deciding in what priority order do you need to address them. You know what I mean? And because it's going to be very complicated. And I think we're all looking for a really easy answer. And unfortunately, it just isn't there for us or anyone in the future. So, but I have faith you all will work it out. There'll be some big chart on a wall with it all worked out, and but you're going to have to listen hard to one another to get there.
Yeah. Alexis, did you have a question for Travis? Oh, I guess I misunderstood. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate your time. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to comments. And so, Alexis, now I'm going to call on you to make student comments.
So at Rock Creek, they're continuing their partnership with WE organization that focuses on community service for others. Rock Creek is currently in the middle of their first school-wide service project. They have partnered with the Tower of Niceness organization to create hygiene packs to be presented to the homeless in Sacramento. At Twin Oaks, they recently held a Dance Fit fundraiser, and thanks to the students and family support, Twin Oaks raised almost $17,000. And in December, they will be having a virtual bingo with Santa. And Unbiased, my favorite high school, Victory High, will be presenting holiday cards to residents of 4 local senior living retirement communities between Thanksgiving and winter break. And additionally, the high school body is looking forward to seeing who will be participating in December 9th, the LCAP Student Forum. And that's it.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm very proud of you. You didn't know what an LCAP was. So you're being a good student. Thank you very much. Board member comments. Derek, any comments? Eric?
Sure, I will take my final opportunity
Absolutely.
for comments. I think I'll be brief, though.
You get 3 minutes.
I get 3 minutes?
Brenda,
Okay,
can you
I
please
can
start
keep
the
it under
clock?
3 minutes. I suppose I'll make my final COVID comments. As I look at the data from our hybrid model, and as we read about other districts and other schools that have reopened, partially reopened, just the lesson to me is that masks and social distancing really work and make a difference. We are seeing an uptick in cases, but perhaps this is because as the board, we're able to have conversations and get a bit more information than just what we see posted on the website. So this is a tangent now. So I do think we should continue to move towards getting more information about our COVID cases online so that parents can understand that too. But it seems that most of the cases we're seeing, it's not coming from spread on campus. And I'm really glad to see that. But of course, we can all see the numbers in our community, and Thanksgiving is coming up. I really hope everyone has a wonderful and a healthy and a safe Thanksgiving. I think expecting people to not get together with their family for Thanksgiving, if that's your public health strategy, it's gonna fail. But that said, just if people are watching at home, I think the more strongly you want your kids in class for as many minutes as possible, just the more important it is to wear masks, to social distance, to be sensible. Because as Travis was saying, after the break, everybody's gonna come back. And then we're gonna have winter break and everybody's gonna come back, and we're gonna be bringing that back into the classroom with us. So if you're gonna get together and see your family, that is great. If you're gonna see your family for Thanksgiving and you're not gonna wear masks, a lot of people are gonna do that. I at least hope that for the next couple weeks, everywhere else you go, you're washing your hands, you're wearing a mask, because that's the one thing that is within our power that we can do to help keep our schools open and help keep our kids in class, which is what we all want. So that'll be my final COVID comment from the temporary dais. But really, everyone, have a great, healthy, safe Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Eric. Michelle, I can't see, do you have any? Camille?
Only one more time to say thank you very much. Again, I am just so overwhelmed with all of this, and thank you. And Greg Daly, what a sweet man to come down. That was a shocker. So thank you to him. Just to build on Eric's comments about being safe and really thinking about, what we're all doing. It seems to me, and I'm finding this out with people at work and stuff, is that we kind of go in patterns. Do you know what I mean? And so for a while, we've been okay. We can do this. We can get, yay, go team. And you're right, Eric, people wearing masks. I think socially distancing at schools is hard for I don't care what age student, it's hard, but I know people are trying their best. But right now it's hard, I think, for everybody. I do. I don't know whether it's the holidays coming up and they want to be with their families, or they're just really tired of this and thought, but right now I think people are struggling a bit. So more than ever, we need to take care of one another and be there for each other in a socially distanced, masked way, but to know that the people we work with and the people we are with at home, we all just need to be kind to one another right now, because it's going to be hard. The winter will be a little bit harder. So thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. The only comment I have is I do want to, Travis actually mentioned, but I want to acknowledge and thank our teachers. We are in the middle of our reviews or our conferences. Thank you, our conferences. And I've been doing some calls around, and anecdotally it seems to be going particularly well. And Bill, I don't know if you've had this, but for everyone I'm talking to, it sounds like we're actually having a higher percentage of connections to parents at home. And so I do think if this is a lesson for us, maybe this is the permanence of after COVID. There's no reason we can't do these on Zoom. It seems to be working quite well, and we seem to be having better connections, and it makes sense for parents not having to schlep in. It makes sense for teachers. And so these are these moments where we can find something that we can actually take on beyond this and use well. And so I appreciate everything you're having the conference today. It sounds like it's been going great, and that's fantastic. So thank you. Mr. Superintendent?
Last week, we celebrated Veterans Day, and as a son of a veteran, I think it's important to acknowledge that of our employees, we have 24 employees that have contributed over 200 years of service to our nation as a veteran, and that's just to be acknowledged and celebrated. And I know we are a really proud, patriotic community. So just want to acknowledge that we have members of our RUSD family that have served their nation, and we're all grateful for that. Also, we've talked a lot about Thanksgiving, but just a couple updates on this. First is we've acknowledged the amazing service of both Trustee Stevens and Maben, but also want to acknowledge and congratulate our trustees-elect Tiffany Satoff and Julie Hupp, and also Rochelle Price, and that our new trustees have already engaged in orientation activities that I think demonstrates their commitment to want to hit the ground running, and we appreciate that. And we'll be doing the swearing-in ceremony for them on December 11th, and then we all know December 14th is our next regular scheduled meeting. And so we also, again, just urge you to that safety and that mindfulness that Thanksgiving week is followed by weeks in school. So please take advantage of the time with families, but do so in mindful that we want to have your kids back with us on that Monday. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. So with that, I'd like to move on to the consent calendar, item 10.1. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine and will be enacted by one motion followed by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the Board of Trustees, audience, or staff requests specific items removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Any agenda items removed will be voted upon following the motion to approve the consent calendars. Do any board members have an item they wish to remove from the consent calendar? Seeing none. Any members of the, oh, you're standing for the next agenda item. Okay. Seeing none. Chief Capra, any public objection? Want removal? Seeing none. Oh, great. All right. So with that, could I have a motion and second to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rochelle, seconded by Eric. Brenda, please call the roll.
Alexis Manriquez,
Yes.
Camille Maben,
Yes.
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Eric Stevens,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes.
Rick Miller.
Yes. Okay. With that, I'd like to introduce Barbara Patterson, our Deputy Superintendent, to take us through our public hearing and action on renewal of Rocklin Academy Myers petition for July 1st, 2021. Let me turn to Ms. Patterson.
Good evening, President, President Miller, board members, and Superintendent Stock. The Rocklin Academy Myers Charter submitted a renewal petition on September 1st. The current authorization period for this charter ends June 30, 2021. The district and charter administration mutually agreed to waive the timelines in Ed Code and agreed to hold the public hearing for community input, the presentation by the charter school, and the action to be taken by the board for approval or denial of the petition in one meeting, this meeting. So we have with us via Zoom Robin Stout, the Executive Director and Superintendent of the Rocklin Academy family of schools, and she is going to make a presentation for Rocklin Academy Myers Charter. Also present via Zoom representing Rocklin Academy Myers Charter is Jelaine Antone, the Director of Growth and Community Engagement, and Laura Regan, the Principal, and Ace Ensign, the Director of Finance. And so I'll be driving this.
Well, this will be interesting. See if we can get this to go.
Yes.
All right. Robin,
Okay.
Joanne, are you with us?
This is Robin.
Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Robin, we can, yes.
Awesome. Okay, well, good evening, Superintendent Stock, Deputy Superintendent Patterson, and Board of Trustees. We also really want to thank Eric and Camille for all of your service over the years, and congratulations, Camille, for your very well-deserved recognition. It was very wonderful to see that this evening. Thank you, Barbara, for navigating the slides. If you can move to the next slide. Tonight, we wanted to provide a quick overview of Rocklin Academy Myers, as well as review the new AB 1505 tracks for renewal. We will also go over the data demonstrating Rocklin Academy Myers meets the criteria for renewal for 5 years. Next slide. Rocklin Academy Myers was established in 2006. Throughout the years, Rocklin Academy Myers has been recognized locally and nationally. Some of the accolades include a National Core Knowledge Visitation Site, a Solution Tree Model PLC, California Gold Ribbon School, and most recently recognized for the positive impact during the COVID pandemic by the PBIS Coalition. Next slide. As you can see, Rocklin Academy Myers is a small campus of 186 students. Although our student population is diverse, because Myers is so small, the impact outcomes can be great on the California School Dashboard, as 1 or 2 students can make a significant difference, as you will see further in the presentation. Next slide. As you know, the new criteria includes 3 tracks for renewal. There's a high track, which is a 5 to 7 year term, a low track, which is a 2-year term, and a middle track, which is 5 years. Not to get confused, the middle track is actually placed on the end because the high and low tracks have some commonalities that they share. So it's just for ease of understanding for the placement here, but we'll go over more detail about each of the tracks in the upcoming slides. As you can see here, Rocklin Academy Myers did fall in the middle track, and we will provide the evidence of that moving forward. Next slide. So to fall in the high track, which again is the 5 to 7 year term, a charter school needs to receive the highest performance levels of green or blue on all of the California School Dashboard indicators. Another way that you can fall into this high track is to perform higher than the state average and on a majority of subgroups for each of these areas. But to do this, you also have to have a minimum of 2 student groups, which in this circumstance, Rocklin Academy Myers only has 1 student group that's numerically significant to apply towards this. Next slide. This slide demonstrates the low track is a 2-year term, and to fall in this category, a charter school would need to have received the 2 lowest performance levels in the California School Dashboard, which Rocklin Academy Myers, of course, did not do. So next slide. This brings us to the middle track. This is actually the track that CDE has placed Rocklin Academy Myers into. An authorizer may only deny on this track if they find that the charter school has failed to make significant progress toward meeting standards that provide a benefit to the pupils, or that a closure of the charter school is in the best interest of pupils and its decision provided greater weight to academic performance. So as we move forward, we'll go ahead and look at some of the data for Rocklin Academy Myers, so you can see why it is we qualify for this middle track. Here you can see the California School Dashboard data for Rocklin Academy Myers compared to the state of California for both 2018 and 19. We're looking at the indicators of English language arts, math, chronic absenteeism, and suspension rates. Here you can see Rocklin Academy Myers did receive the 2 highest performance levels of green or blue for English language arts, math, and chronic absenteeism, but you can see that the suspension rate is what kept us from being placed on the high track. Rocklin Academy received a performance level color of orange in 2018 and yellow in 2019. It's really important here to be mindful that because Rocklin Academy Myers is a small campus, each student can greatly impact the dashboard. These colors are based both on current status as well as change from the previous year. So if you look at the 2018 data, you see that about 2% of the students, which was 4 students, were suspended. If you compare that to the 2017 school year, we had 2 students suspended. The decrease of 2 students moved our performance indicator color to an orange. And then in 2019, again, we maintained 4 total suspension, which placed us at a yellow. And as a reminder, to be placed on the high track suspension rate, we would have had to be blue and green in all areas. Next slide. Here's just an overview of the indicators at a glance. You can see for English language arts, we received green and blue, and for math, blue and green. Our student groups were too small to receive a performance level color or any data on our English learner progress indicator, and the college and career indicator does not apply for elementary school. Looking at the academic engagement of chronic absenteeism, we did very well, receiving the highest performance level of blue in both 18 and 19. But again, it's the suspension rate that held us back from the highest track. Next slide. Additionally, as part of the requirements, we have to look at the local indicators on the California School Dashboard, and we met all standards here for each of the local indicators. Next slide. As clearly demonstrated by this evidence, Rocklin Academy Myers does meet the criteria to be approved for a renewal term of 5 years. And final slide. In closing, we would like to thank you for your partnership over the past 2 decades and look forward to continuing to work with you and supporting the amazing families and students in our community. And our team is here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Robin. Barbara, do you want us to ask questions of their team first and then come back to you? Is that sort of the best way to do this?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So colleagues, any questions for the Rocklin Academy folks? I'm assuming Derek not looking at me, is no? Rochelle. Yes? No? All right. Robin, this is Rick. I have two questions. One, I'm wondering if you can just explain so people understand why you're here today. So the Myers campus was supposed to be part of the Turnstone campus, which was built on Arugula campus. We made space for everyone at Arugula, and now we're looking at renewing this charter. I know there's a reason for it based on the law, but can you sort of walk through why that is you're here today?
Yes, thank you. And Ace, feel free to jump in as well. So as you know, we were intending to merge Turnstone and Myers campuses. However, when we started this year, as you know, funding, we were not sure if we would get funded on new student growth. And even though they are our existing students in our organization, by moving them to Turnstone, those 186 Myers students were considered then new students. So we would not have received funding for those 186 students. So that is the sole reason of why we're presenting this evening.
Great. Okay, if there's no other question, the one other thing actually I'm sorry, but I looked at your data, I got intrigued. I'd love, not to say a long time, Robin, but if you could very quickly, your increase, I'm gonna actually compliment your increase in, you didn't present it tonight, but in your board pack, in the packet you present to us, your low SES going from 50% proficiency in 16-17 to almost 70% now. That's enviable, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit, I know you weren't prepared for this, but a little bit about how you think that happened.
So I'll put Laura on the spot because she is the site principal, so she can talk about their targeted interventions that they do on the site and how they're addressing their subgroups.
Absolutely. So I am welcome to be here tonight. I'm pleased to be able to share this information. We actually redeveloped our tiered intervention system. So students were targeted based on academic needs for subgroups, targeted in math and ELA, and also closely monitoring social emotional learning so that we target any interventions needed to support the whole child. So during this time too, we further developed our PBIS Tier 2 teams and Tier 3 teams. That way there were whole committees that had eyes on the data, and we ensured that we can put individualized plans in place for all students and watch that growth happen.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You bet.
And sorry, Camille, you want, yep.
Yeah. So Robin, just wanted to say, you know, what has been amazing is to watch the evolution of the relationship that we all have from where we started to where we are now. So just appreciate all the work that we all have done over the years to get to a place where we're doing this all in one meeting. Amazing. So yeah. Thank you all. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Barbara, I'm going to turn back to you, but let me ask a question of you before you turn. Maybe you're going to answer this anyway, but following up on my question for Robin, can you just clarify, is there any impact to our long-term housing agreement? Will this impact the number of kids at Rukla? Will this impact the number of dollars we're spending to build Rukla? Will this any impact at all on the decisions we made last year? Is your mic on?
Please, no.
Okay.
No,
Thank
it does not.
Thank you.
So in your packet is the recommended findings of fact. So renewal petitions are governed by Ed Code 47605 and sections 47607 and 47607.2, which further outline the criteria applicable to a renewal petition. This is blah, blah, blah. To pursuant to AB 1505, which just became effective July 1st. And this new criteria is what Robin spent some time on the school performance. And so just to reiterate, for the current renewal cycle, since CD has identified Rocklin County Myers as a middle performing school, then the board may grant a 5-year waiver, a 5-year renewal term. And so all of the requirements are reviewed and in this document, but just to summarize, based on a careful review of the Rocklin Academy Myers renewal petition by district administration, excuse me, and legal counsel, is recommended that the Rocklin Unified School District adopt these findings and approve the renewal petition submitted by Rocklin Academy Myers. The petition meets requirements for renewal pursuant to education sections 47605, 47607, and 47607.2.
Great, thank you. And one, I don't think, Robin, are you still there?
Yes.
So can I just clarify one more thing? So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So we are going to renew this. If we vote to renew this, we'll renew it for 5 years. It is still the intention, once we get through this weird quirk, COVID quirk in the system in terms of funding, after the 5 years are up, then you would go to one charter petition around Turnstone for all kids, correct?
Correct.
Great, okay, thank you. All right, so with that, let me officially open our public hearing and ask for any public comment. Chief Capper, is there any public comment on this? I didn't look and see if there's any.
No, President Miller.
Did anyone look and see if there's any written? It looks like there's no written. Okay, so board members, any comments? Eric? Oops, sorry, Derek?
No, I was gonna.
Just real quick, and I think you hit it on it. Do we have a ballpark on timing of the code? I mean, everything assumes, okay, are we talking next year that we would consolidate, or when are the estimates on when the two come together?
I think it'd be, they would have a 5 years, so it'd be in the 6th year, correct?
Well, the two petitions
Oh, you could, yeah.
periods are different. So I'm not sure, Robin, it may be when Rocklin Academy Turnstone comes up for renewal. Would that be correct?
Yes, we would work with you on that. I think because we're still uncertain what next year will look like, that's really why we moved forward with this too, is that it was really unknown what next year would look like. But as the Turnstone renewal comes up, then we would definitely work with you on what that would look like.
But to be clear, on a charter law is that you can dissolve a charter whenever you want.
Yeah.
So we're doing it for 5 years, but at any time they can say, okay, we're good now, we'll
I'm
dissolve
just
it. Yeah.
trying to figure out when is the Turnstone renewal? I mean, is it like 2022 or 2023, or when do they?
And just to be
When's
clear,
the
'cause we talk
rotation?
different languages, Turnstone is the Rukla campus. So
Yes,
it's just
yeah,
so
yeah.
people
Sorry,
at home
I
know.
apologize.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know that off the top of my head. Do you know that, Ace or Robin?
Ace or Robin, I think the question was, do you know when Turnstone expires?
I should know this. Laura or Jelaine, do you know?
No, off the top of my head.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
Sorry, keep
Great.
going. Yeah.
Any other questions? Eric? No? What's that? Okay, any other questions? So the only, Camille, do you have any other questions? No. The only other thing I did want to say is I did note that with the new criteria, this is not for Myers, this is in charters in general. The state board just last week agreed that part of the criteria you can look at is a true growth model, unlike what the state currently offers, which is change versus status. And so we do in Placer have the ability to actually look at a true growth model. And so I would love to see us move towards the next round, whatever charter come to us, to actually start to look at growth as part of our consideration for both renewal and consideration of any new charters. Okay, can I get a motion? And we'll get back to you with that answer, Derek.
Yes, I will take the proposed motion from staff. Based upon a careful review of the Rocklin Academy renewal petition by district administration and legal counsel, I move the board adopts the findings of fact presented in the staff report. I further move that the board grant Rocklin Academy Myers a 5-year charter based upon these findings.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Eric, second by Camille. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Alexis Manriquez,
Yes.
Camille Maben,
Yes.
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Eric Stevens,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes.
Rick Miller.
Yes. And with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. To our friends at Rocklin Academy, thank you for your time and congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, moving on. Do I have this right? Are we moving on to Victory? Yeah, okay. So we're going to move on to item 11.2, approve Victory High School's school plan for student achievement, their SIPSA and comprehensive support and improvement plan. We're going to ask Hannah Anderson, our Director of Innovation, School Programs and Accountability.
If she comes up, President Miller, I think it's only right to acknowledge that she's with us on her birthday this evening.
What?
So
Hey, Hannah. It doesn't get better than this for your birthday.
Wow, thank you so much.
It does, Rick. Do you want to sing a solo?
I do want to recognize that Scott Hutton, also the principal of Victory, has also joined us as well. Is it your birthday, Scott?
It is not.
Well, please come back when it is. We love to have it. You get a special cookie or something on your birthday.
Do not come back. Okay. Well, good evening, President Miller, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock. I am joined tonight by Principal Hutton to share with you the 2020-2021 Comprehensive Support and Improvement Update for Victory High School. During the presentation this evening, we will review the CSI eligibility criteria, update you on actions they took during the 1920 school year that were included in their CSI plan, which is embedded in their school plan for student achievement. We'll also share updates on the 2020-2021 CSI plan and request approval of this plan, as well as a compliance item of Every Student Succeeds Act prompts. CSI qualification criteria is required by the Every Student Succeeds Act, and each state is to determine their qualification criteria. In the state of California, schools can qualify for comprehensive support and improvement with either a low graduation rate or Title I schools that fall into these 4 criteria listed here on the bottom. In the case of Victory High School, they have in the 2019 California dashboard, so these are always offset by a year, they qualified under the schools with all red and orange indicators. And they also qualified in the 2018 California dashboard. So the plan that we're going to review is actually from the 2018 dashboard. The plan we're asking for approval on is based on the 2019 dashboard. One piece I want to mention while on this slide is the majority of continuation high schools in the state of California have fallen into comprehensive support and improvement. It happens to be based on these criteria that the majority of schools are falling in. For this reason, we have met all of the criteria, but are also utilizing the funds within the guidelines of the law to make sure that we're serving students at Victory High School to the best extent possible. We also want to share that the California dashboard at Victory High School is truly a reflection of the students who need the most in our district. These students, as you'll hear from Principal Hutton in a few minutes, have been with our district the majority of them have been with our district for their entire educational careers. Excuse me. And so we do want to acknowledge that the scores are reflective of Victory High School, but they are also reflective of all of our students in need in the district. So the plan itself that we're going to go over tonight must be informed by those state indicators. It needs to also be based on school level needs. It needs to include evidence-based interventions, and it needs to identify resource inequities that we are then addressing through the implementation of the plan. So prior to talking to you about last year's plan and what was implemented at Victory High School and some outcome data, I want to turn it over to Principal Hutton so he can share with you some context of Victory High School that you can have in your mind as we go through the plan. Principal Hutton.
Thank you, Ellen. Good evening, President Miller, trustees, Superintendent Stock. I have to just start by saying, first of all, it's always a pleasure to be in front of you, and I do hope sincerely that with all this COVID craziness, with this emotion-filled evening, that you and yours are doing well. As I said, it is a pleasure to be here this evening, and as the principal, the opportunity to actually share some of the incredible things that we're doing over at Victory High. Being a small school, I have the unique opportunity to meet with every single family that comes to our school, and that opportunity provides us with a lens into seeing and hearing what families are going through. And I will tell you that every single one of them has a story. There's something there behind it. If you've been on our campus or if you've participated in our graduation ceremonies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so before we jump into the data, I want to just provide a little bit of context. The average enrollment for a Victory High student is about 13 months. And while I don't hold a lot of stock in just a single test, and that being the CASP assessment, that is what we are all here about. The average time a Victory High School junior is with us before taking the CASP is 5.5 months. 1 out of every 5 of our students are SPED qualified. 1 out of 3 of our students are classified at risk, and that's social emotional, and that's based on our co-vitality social inventory. And I will tell you that the maybe most surprising is that 1 out of every other student qualifies as socioeconomically disadvantaged. 20%, and this is actually, I got to tell you, it's kind of a plug, but 20% of our current enrollment are families that are coming to Victory High School out of desire or interest as opposed to necessity. And that is a number that we have been tracking, and it is slowly growing, and quite frankly, the entire team, we're very proud of that. Word is getting out that it's not a bad place to be, that it's not a dangerous place to be, and that students can actually grow and grow into themselves. So again, we're really proud of that. As Hannah alluded though, 94% of our students, and each of the statistics that I've shared with you are pretty consistent, 94% of our students right now are homegrown, meaning that they attended one of our 11 elementary schools, they went on to either Springview or Granite Oaks, and then they spent at least 2 years at Whitney High School or Rocklin High School. We are a small, but we're a mighty team at Victory High School, and the student success, I can't help myself. It has everything to do with the compassion and the passion that our teachers have, and there's an all-hands-on-deck approach to just everything that we do. And so, again, it may sound like I'm boasting, but quite honestly, it's the team that deserves the credit. And I've just, despite what sometimes these numbers show us, I'm incredibly proud of what we do for our community and for our students. So I thank you for listening. Please.
Okay, so for a moment, we're going to go back in time to last year. We want to talk to you about the needs assessment that were identified for last year's plan, and then talk to you about their actions and some outcome data before we dive into this year's plan. So in the summer of 2019, this again was based on the 2018 dashboard, the school team went through a root cause analysis and found needs in the area of suspensions, college and career readiness, and mathematics. Just to name a few of those needs and inequities, they were lacking transportation, they were lacking intervention services for students requiring coping skills or having addiction issues. They were also engaged in a tardy practice that resulted in students having on-campus suspension and missing more instruction. In the area of college and career readiness, they were lacking the career technical education or dual enrollment opportunities for students, and lacking the staff to implement those opportunities. In the area of mathematics, they only had a half-time math teacher, and did not have appropriate curriculum to support students. So moving into the plan that was implemented last year, the first goal was, by the end of last school year, there would be a decrease in the number of students suspended by 10% and a decrease in the number of students with multiple suspensions by 10% from the previous year. Obviously, this year was cut short, we know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but to just share some of the actions or activities, they were looking at different ways to address tardies. They were looking at looking to implement restorative practices and positive behavior interventions and supports. They also were working to assist students with coping skills and addiction issues, and hoped to develop a system to transport students where transportation was a barrier. So what you're going to see is a series of me going back and forth with metrics. So on this slide, the left column shows what they were looking to track. So for example, in the top box showing the number of tardies cleared out of tardies committed, right? And then the middle shows the baseline prior to implementing their actions, and the right column shows what was found, right, after they engaged in these actions last year. So the baseline data was that 20% of students received tardies that resulted in on-campus suspension. The outcome data was there was still a number of tardies. This continues to be a challenge. However, they were able to implement a variety of other means to rectify and address those tardies, and 0% of students received on-campus suspensions as a result of that implementation. The next metric was looking at the number of trainings for restorative practices, and then the number of students served through restorative practices. The baseline was that there were no restorative practices. The outcome was that although there weren't very many interpersonal issues requiring restorative practices, of those that there were, they were able to practice with in 4 instances.
Do you have any idea what happened? I mean, do we know if there was reduced for those 4 individuals? Was there reduced referrals, reduced tardies, reduced anything?
Excuse me, it is for...
I know you probably wouldn't know that if I and Scott, so I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
That's okay, forgive me.
For restorative practices, I think
So
that...
we had 4 kids that we, instead of doing other discipline, we did restorative practices, which is fantastic. I'd love to know what we know about that. So did we see a reduced referral as a result? Did we see any reason to believe it had an impact that was a positive, lasting impact for the children that went through the restorative practices?
Yes, and I speak to it more clearly, or expanding on it as we look to they're part of the reason that we move forward with some of these same goals, is because we saw that students embrace the idea that this is an opportunity for us to face the consequences, to talk about either what they were thinking at the time and how they responded to it, maybe how it made other people feel. We've had the opportunity even this year to continue with those restorative practices. We've conducted several circles already. I don't want to, it's up ahead, but I will tell you that I'm very proud of the fact that with what we've done to date this year, we have had 0 suspensions. And to me, it has in part to do with our cohort. And so all of this data that you look at, there has to be that understanding that our cohort is changing significantly year after year. Yeah. But I also believe in my heart that it has everything to do with the information that we're providing students, the time that we're spending with them, not only with the resources that we have, but the resources that have been granted through us through the CSI funds and through the county, and just the time that we're spending with them, with our students.
Great, thanks, Scott.
Looking at the next piece, they were looking to track suspensions and went from a third of suspensions being due to drug or alcohol abuse. I do want to say I know these two don't actually align, but what I wanted to point out here was a really clear indication that the site is looking at alternatives to suspension. When you looked at year-over-year data, they went from 31 suspensions to 4 suspensions last year. And I think that this is a testament to this, the Victory High staff and the work that they are implementing. I think that it is also, it also is indicative of the fact that they have been on this journey to implement positive behavior intervention supports at their school, as well as implementing multiple interventions for students. The next piece was related to transportation. Unfortunately, that piece did not move forward last year, so transportation was not established.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Going back, and this is on the tardies. Just doing the quick math, it's like, if you take the 102, the 102 divided by the 1288, that's like 8% with one or more. And then just looking over at Marty, is that similar to Rocklin and Whitney? That where we have, if you have roughly 1,300 tardies, and then 102 of them came from one or more, so I'll call it your chronic people, not the one time, roughly 8%. Is that about the same as the other high schools? Is it, you get less than 10% are the kids that, you busted once, you're probably gonna do it again type thing?
I would say actually on our comprehensive sites, it's higher than that. Just with the location of the classrooms at Victory High School, we're relatively close together. And I have seen the detention list at both schools, and they're quite large.
Prior to moving to the next slide, I do just want to mention around the suspension metric. I did not mention this earlier. We will not see a dashboard with results from the 2020 school year, as we did not complete the school year with all students in school. But we do believe that were we to see an indicator, Victory High School qualified because they were entirely in the red and the orange. And we do believe because of the significant decrease in suspensions that we would move at least into the yellow. And so that would have taken us out of that qualifying status.
Awesome.
So yet to come, we're hearing that schools will just remain in qualifying status. We don't know if the dollars will be associated with that yet, but we're hoping that they are, so that we can continue to implement these great interventions that we have for students.
That's great.
So goal 2 was to improve the percent of students prepared for college and career with a structure to access CTE pathways or dual enrollment or certificate course completion. The idea was that students could, from Victory High School, we would establish a practice where they could move over onto Rocklin High School's campus and participate in a pathway. And that students, Ed Code says that when students turn 16, even if they're a sophomore, that they can move onto a continuation school campus if those are the supports that they need. And so there was an idea to create a practice that would allow for both of those, as well as look at implementing online courses for CTE or dual enrollment options. So looking at these areas, the idea was to track the number of students accessing courses at Rocklin High and Whitney High. 0 students were able to access these. The biggest barrier appeared to be scheduling and the different start and end times. So the one student who the schedule did align was not interested in this option, but that continues to be an area of exploration you'll hear about. The next piece was looking at allowing students to move to Victory High School at 16. They haven't, last year there was no formal approval given for this to happen. However, we don't have a policy that precludes this from happening. So this could become a practice and would easily be something that we can work to implement this year. One student did move from the comprehensive to Victory High School last year at 16. And there is an interest on the part of some to do so as sophomores. The last was that 0 students access that CTE or dual enrollment through online. I think one of the biggest learnings of this year has been the Rocklin Virtual Campus, and we know that that has given us lots of opportunity to test online courses through Edgenuity. It is the same platform that Victory High School uses. So we're going to be leaning into all of that learning we've done this year. You'll hear about later that this continues to be in the plan.
Can I ask, when you think about college and career readiness, and so I appreciate the CTE pathway, and I get the problem with it not being available, and I appreciate you working on that. I am curious, though, do you know, Scott, off the top of your head, what your A through G graduation rate is?
Our A through G, so
what percentage of your graduates are graduating A through G?
0.
0.
It's not an A through G program.
You cannot get to A through G through Victory? I thought you could. You cannot?
You cannot. You can through what was RICA, and now, just through what was RICA. RAAC still is not an A through G qualified program either. And part of it is the reduction in the credit requirements of 200 versus 250, and the fact that it's you're not required to have a third year of math or foreign language, and some of the other elements that apply to A through G requirements.
So to the college career dashboard measure on the dashboard, it's that CTA pathway is the only way to get to access that.
That's correct.
Which is the strangest one anyway to ask. Okay, all right, thanks.
Just going on the CTE pathways, and Marty, I'll ask you, you probably know where I'm going. With the great things that we've been able to do in COVID times and asynchronous work and having the kids in, whether it be BIDA or Dan Frank's old class, and doing some of that online stuff, is there an opportunity for some of the Victory kids to utilize that? So it's not necessarily I'm in class standing next to the machines, but I can do some of the drawing, the programming, the online technical things?
So something we started 2 years ago is identifying students as they start as ninth graders to choose a pathway that they have passion about, because the goal would be that we can get the first 2 years in at the comprehensive site. So if they do switch over to Victory High School as a junior, we could get that academic pass so they can go back and become a completer. Again, as it was just mentioned, we had one in that situation that had that opportunity but chose not to do it. As far as looking at CTE online courses, as Hannah just mentioned, Edgenuity would probably be the best way to go through that, because that's available right there, and they could do it on the Victory High School campus, because scheduling does become an issue.
Right.
I have a question back on goal 1. Do we not have any need for public transportation? Or how come we haven't, made any progress on that goal?
Would you like me to answer that? Or? Sure. Okay. So it's not that the need doesn't exist, that's for sure, but it's, I think right now, especially with times as they are, financially, it's just very difficult. And being in the center where we're facilitating, accommodating students throughout the entire Rocklin Unified School District, establishing routes that can accommodate our needs is very difficult. Now, we do have some students who will take the bus to Rocklin High School, and then they can walk down to our campus, but then there becomes that timing issue of 7:45.
What's your time difference between when Rocklin starts? And do you guys start at the same time as Rocklin High School?
No, we do not. We
Okay.
start at 8:45, an hour later.
Oh, an hour, okay.
Yes. So there's a little bit of a challenge there that you can imagine. Now, I mentioned the cohort issues earlier, and we are not seeing such a significant difference in transportation needs this year as we have in years past. And so you'll hear less emphasis on that particular goal or objective as we move forward.
Okay.
We also, when we explored this option last year, the challenge became, even though we could provide extra hours to the router to develop the route, we actually had such a shortage of bus drivers and continue to have that challenge, that finding folks that could actually drive these routes became one of the barriers. And so we invested in invested our energy in other actions, but we'll continue to bring that piece forward if it is a need.
Okay, thank you.
So can I just ask if it is a need? And I certainly would always want our bus drivers and to be able to do that. But if not, if there are reasons not, is there not a reason to reach out to the city, to the public transportation, to say, can you get our, is it, I don't want to cause a fuss here, but just asking.
I mean, we absolutely can reach out to Placer County Public Transit for assistance, but just to be candid, we have a very limited serviceability in this community of public transportation. And so it's definitely something we could look at. The other thing is because in other places, because we would provide bus passes and things like that to help facilitate students getting here. And so I think that, as we'll hear, we want to look at what are those different options. And one of the reasons the school starts a little bit later is to facilitate a little bit ease to get to the campus versus, giving students more time in the morning to do so. But as you can see, it has other impacts in the schedule pieces. So we need to continue to look at this, and but we can reach out to public transportation, absolutely, and ask, but it's a very limited service.
I know. Well, maybe.
Yeah, of course, and if you'll allow me, so we did reach out just to see, and we've had several students who have asked the question, and the response we get is, well, there is a stop, there is a pickup, it's about a mile away, and you would think that would seem reasonable, but when we provide that option to our students, the idea of having to walk in the rain for a mile there,
doesn't seem reasonable to me.
Or in the cold, et cetera, it certainly becomes less desirable. And with the advent of Lyft and Uber, we often have students who are taking that to school.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
All right, looking at goal 3, this was around the area of mathematics to increase the percentage of students who meet or exceed in mathematics by 20%. The actions were related to shifting from a half-time math teacher to a full-time math teacher, and working with our instructional coaches to pilot, screen, and adopt and train on different math programs. So all of the metrics selected were reliant on the CASP testing, so we weren't able to actually show that because we didn't take the CASP testing, but wanted to show the growth that was seen by the teacher in the classroom. And so they utilize iReady at Victory High School. There were 39
So
students.
why iReady instead of MAP?
We've been using iReady for quite a long time now. It was particularly when we started at RICA,
Yeah.
we were utilizing iReady, and it's just become a program that
It just works for you.
It works for our student population. We like the fact.
Is there a difference? Like, do you feel what's the difference in MAP that you feel like it's a better assessment for your students?
I don't know that it's necessarily a better assessment than MAPS, but I do know that we have benefited from the identified domains.
Okay.
And, where those gaps exist,
Yeah.
and the immediate access to PDFs when we're running intervention for our students. That seems to be enjoyed by all of our teachers, both at Victory and what was Rick and now Ray.
Okay, thanks.
So one of the pieces that we noticed is that although there were 39 students who could have taken the assessment, only 29 of them were in the course at the beginning and the end. And so that's a quick shift and something that we can change for this year to make sure that no matter when you start or leave the course, that we can get some type of assessment data to be able to show progress or growth. However, of the 29 that remained, right, for both diagnostics, 23 students showed growth, an average of 1.6 grade levels, and there were 3 students who showed over 3 grade levels worth of growth.
Right.
There were 6 that showed a decline on an average of a half of a grade level, and there are some additional reports of both iReady to show their growth, and then also Alex, which is an intervention program they're using.
Can I ask, though, beyond the metrics, looking at the goal, first of all, 20% coming from 0 is admirable. It's an ambitious goal, and it's fantastic if you get there. It did seem to me like the notion of just adding a math teacher and looking at curriculum, that would be amazing growth with just those changes. So you think that's enough to get you where you want to go?
Well, we piloted Alex as one of our programs that we're using for intervention. So we're using iReady as the diagnosis, as I mentioned, to establish sort of those strengths in particular domains and opportunities for growth. And then we're utilizing Alex as an opportunity for an intervention piece, because most of our students need to be in a class to earn their
So
credits.
what's your core curriculum? I'm embarrassed I don't know that. What's your math program at Victory?
Pearson.
Okay, so when you say the addition, you're actually adding Alex, the intervention program. The base is still the same. You just added an intervention. I got you.
Yes,
I got you.
yes,
Okay.
And the base program was selected last year through this
Right.
process.
Right. Okay.
So a piece of data that isn't on here, but that I had the good fortune of hearing when I was conducting this year's needs assessment, which we're getting to, I had the good fortune of hearing from the math department and other teachers at the school that for the first time ever, they believed in Victory High School's existence, students were selecting math for elective courses.
Wow.
That they were wanting to be in the math class and enjoying that, as well as science, and you'll hear more about that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Hutton to continue with this year's needs assessment and this year's goals.
Perfect, thank you again. So based on the data equity and the needs assessment that was conducted, facilitated by the great Hannah here, back in June, we went through and we elected to continue the work, the team elected to continue the work on 3 of the goals that we had already created the year prior. And then we had identified 2 more, and if you don't mind, just jump into the next goal. So you can see those there. That goal 1, 2, and 3, those were, the first 2 were repeated. The third one was slightly revised. And then goals 4 and 5 are considered new. And we're on slide 13, sorry. So,
You want me to go back?
no, that's okay, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I'm keeping up with my notes here. One of the things that I really think is important to mention, if you see goal 4, and we've hinted towards this, but we are firm believers that social emotional structure foundation is the most important thing that we can offer our students. And quite frankly, in the absence of that, we really believe that any other goals that we set, whether it's academic or social, we are not going to be able to achieve those if we can't meet those basic needs. And so we felt strongly that a goal regarding social, emotional health and well-being was paramount to our program and the single plan for student achievement this year. So that's part of why you see that one, even though that is not part of the California dashboard. That was not why we were in this situation to begin with.
Can I ask this? I'm not sure I understand that goal. So how do you know the improvement in social emotional? Are you saying 20% less kids will be at risk because if you target social emotional learning, they'll actually be less at risk? Or how are you,
Well, so
what,
we-
20% of what is what I'm asking?
And that's a great question. So we have a couple key indicators that we want to focus in on. On the Healthy Kids Survey, there are a couple questions there that we're honing in on. We do also, I mentioned co-vitality.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at our students. We have what's called a wellness tracker. So it identifies students for a variety of reasons, academic, social, emotional, et cetera. And so we're tracking that data as well, watching those kids. When we have students that are at high risk, we're meeting with them regularly through a variety of resources. And then we also have what's called the State of the Student Survey, because we know that the majority of students come to us, our highest population is typically in the January, February after the first semester. So we wait until then to survey our students, and we ask similar questions to the California Healthy Kids Survey, but a little bit more focused on our site and what we can do for them. And so that combination is how we're going to measure that.
Okay, thanks.
And those are, just for reference, those are in the school plan for student achievement related to Goal 4. And I just have been incredibly impressed that not only was this a focus area for the school, but so much so that they selected 3 different metrics that they were going to look at to track the growth of their students in this area.
And I
So
do have to
that's
say, and I
awesome.
appreciate that, and I'm always preaching, don't just use compliance, use it, and this is a perfect example of we're not just gonna do what's best for compliance, we're gonna do what's best for kids, and this is a great example, and we appreciate you stepping up to do that, truly, it's awesome.
Music to my ears,
It's
I
awesome.
promise you.
Can I just ask a question? So if 97, did you say 93, 97% of our kids at Victory have gone through, but a high number have gone
94,
through-
yes.
Yeah. So are we looking back at those kids to see, are there trends? You know, did 80% of them all of a sudden in middle school have, do you know what I mean? Are we looking back to see,
Yes.
is there some other way to intervene?
So there is, and if you'll allow me, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I know exactly what you're getting at. It's difficult to say exactly what it is, but I will say that years past, the last 2 years, when we have received, we looked at all of our seniors, and 71% of those seniors had been on a Title I track, starting at a Title I elementary school, going on to Springview, and then ultimately to Whitney, and then to Victory. Some of them did go to Rocklin High School, but that was kind of, to me, that is a telling number when you have that high of a percentage going through that pathway. We look at the only measure we had was 8th grade CASP results, and we compared 5th, 8th, and then 11th grade. And unfortunately, there was a significant decline in that result, and whether it's the chemistry, the things that middle school students are going through, we could see that. And so now you have a student who tests in 8th grade, they don't get a test, they've been struggling maybe is a better word, but they've been struggling to master the integrated 1-2, their language arts subjectives, and now they come 3 years later, they come to Victory High School and they're required to take that test and haven't had really a lot of success to begin with. And so we're constantly seeing that decline. I don't know whether the Title I track is the answer. I don't know whether it's just
You
something in the school.
mentioned both integrated and ELA. Do you see it equally? Is it particularly math that's tripping them up, or it's particularly math?
It's
and is it
particularly
particularly
math.
algebra? Is where?
Yes. And then when you look at the domains, based on the results we have, I can share with you, it's the next slide, but we have, when I jump down to our math goal, we had 89% of our students, and this is a baseline data test that we took initially, 89% tested 2 or more grade levels below, with the lowest being 3rd grade, and the average being 7th grade mathematics. So that is concerning, and that's where our focus is at. And I will tell you that the second most, quite honestly, right now with our students is science. And so part of what we're doing here, and you'll see this in our Goal 5, is we're using some of the CSI funds to support that. And we're fortunate to have a teacher in Mrs. Kingery who she is project-based, and the kids are experiencing science as opposed to just doing it. And it is incredible the difference that we're seeing.
But those numbers that you just said are actually disproportionate to our other Title I kids. And so it sounds like what you're saying is this is our most struggling demographic. Early on, you can begin to see this pattern, and it's a pattern of immediately sort of starting in the elementary level. You could see them leaning towards victory. And I appreciate the number of kids more than ever that are choosing it, but still you want it to be a choice. And you want it to be a choice by them, not by choice by their grades or their academic outcomes. And so thinking, Roger, about how we can think systemically about if we recognize this is the group, we have additional funding for them, how can we go back to the elementary and maybe build those math skills in a way differently than is happening? We know these kids are there, and how can we sort of change that trajectory early on?
Actually, I appreciate that question, and we actually have an answer. And one of those is, for example, we looked at Antelope Creek, which is one of our Title I schools, and they've had 5 years of year-over-year growth in English language arts and mathematics. And one of the key strategies they've used their Title I funds is hiring an intervention teacher to do that actual intervention. Many of other schools hire aides to help out. And so one of the pieces that we're looking at is bringing our Title I schools together, and Hannah's been working with Bill to lead this, is to saying, if we see this has been working and we have the data, then how do we then put this in place that our other Title I schools?
That's great, and that's one thing I'd be curious about, and it's no disrespect, but like, do we find a disproportionate number of Title I kids from Rocklin L end up at Victory than do Antelope Creek? And if it does, that's something for us to learn, that maybe an intervention program that's been instituted that we should be thinking about across the rest of our
And that's a great question. I don't know, we can definitely do that longitudinal backwards look at
again, we have
what was their
three
path.
schools, right? Right.
But the other thing I would ask is, are we looking at more than academics? I mean, are you
Right.
looking, do
Right.
kids start to not come to school as often?
Right.
Are they in trouble more? Are there, do you know what I mean? It's more than one measure that you would want to look at so that you get a.
Right, what are those early warning signs that yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for an opportunity to jump in on this, because I think last year we actually did have a great opportunity to look at students coming out of 8th grade and what were those risk factors for those students. And we were actually able to work with the counselors at both of the comprehensive high schools to really try to identify some needed supports for those students to get them on track. And actually, just before we walked in tonight, we were talking about an at-risk dashboard that we could put together to make this easier. So I think these are pieces that are in the works. The interesting piece about the CSI funds, though, is that we can't actually use them for any school other than Victory High School, even though it is the result of our system that lands students at Victory High School. So,
but we do have supplemental dollars, so there is money available at an earlier age. I know you know I have to say that.
all right. So on this slide, you can see those highlighted actions that we've been talking about all throughout the evening, the continuation of PBIS restorative practices. We have added additional staff to help build systems and coach staff in those areas, continue those small skill social skills groups. We talked about the online CTE programs. We'll continue with that additional math teacher, and then implementing a life skills class, expanding those elective options, making sure that students can move into Victory sooner if they need it, and then improving that science instruction with the inclusion of one more section. So looking at our next steps, this evening we're here to request approval of the school plan for student achievement. We are also going to continue to implement our goals and actions to address needs, and then we'll be utilizing improvement science tools as the school did last year to try activities at a small scale and then scale up when they see structures that are working. They will continue to utilize feedback from all of their stakeholders, and then most importantly, as we have talked about, Victory High School's results really are a result of our system. And so we want to make sure that Victory High School staff participates in our LCAT process and continues to help us refine our multi-tiered systems of support for students prior to ending up at Victory High School. So with that, at this time, we are going to request approval of the 2020-2021 School Plan for Student Achievement and Every Student Succeeds Act Comprehensive Support and Improvement Prompts. And we are here and happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Hannah. All right, colleagues, any other questions?
I know. Just to say, you know, in listening to you, Scott, about the science, you know, that kids doing hands-on work is really exciting to them, and You've seen that in kids wanting to do more science. So I would say, great. So how does that spread, not just to math, because math and science are so connected, but in all of those classes, what we know is kids, when they are engaged that way,
Sure.
the learning really, and I'm sure you're doing it, and I'm sure teachers are, but do it some more, I would say.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other comments? Great. I see there's no written public comments. Chief Capper, is there any oral public comments?
No comments, President Miller.
Great. Could I get a motion to take action on Victory High School's SIPSA?
So moved.
Moved by Camille, seconded by Rochelle. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you for this great work. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Hannah. Great. Moving on to item 12.1. Are there any items that board members would like to place on the pending agenda item? This is your chance, Eric, to fill us up with
Yeah,
a
I
whole
have
bunch
several.
of stuff. Okay. Any other, if there's no other final comments, I just again want to thank both Eric and Camille for incredible service. It's been an honor and a privilege. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session.